Picture this. What if the person you love most was torn away right in front of your eyes? She begs you to save her, but you are completely frozen. No strength, no courage, just total helplessness. An archmage tells him it is totally hopeless because in this cruel world, power is everything. And without any explanation, she is dragged off into the dark. Strength is the ultimate law. That tragic day scarred Aruda so deeply that he spent his entire life chasing raw power. More than 60 years flew by. He tried every single trick to obtain the treasure hidden in the world's deadliest dungeon. But right at the finish line, he died. A lifetime of chasing strength, wasted. But after death, he meets God himself, thanks to holding a divine item called the Tear of God. The Almighty offers him a choice: rest in eternal peace, or survive another 20 years of suffering. To save his beloved, he chooses to reincarnate and do it all over again. That is how our main character grabs his second chance, waking up as a newborn baby. He sees his loving parents again, a beautiful, long-haired mother and his living father. Vowing not to waste a single second, he decides to start training immediately. But his tiny baby body can't even stand yet. Fortunately, he has a new cheat code, a holographic system screen showing stats and skills that only he can see. Only a month old, the baby babbles away, thinking he is speaking perfectly. He remembers God letting him choose an overpowered starter gift. Confused, God explained that everyone is blessed with a special gift at birth. He could choose unbalanced wisdom, broken martial arts, absurdly overpowered magic, or even a gift of infinite charisma. These were the ultimate cheats. Other choices included a genius inventor trait or a mysterious gift of creation. In his past life, Aruda had chosen wisdom. But this time, our main character chooses creation. With all his past knowledge, he knew about the 5 legendary gifts of this world, but creation, he had never heard of it. Now check this out. Our main character notices a weird system screen that nobody else in this world has ever seen before. Besides saving his beloved, he wants to protect his parents, who died when he was only 8 years old. It had been decades since he saw them. It happened on the night of his 8th birthday, during a brutal goblin raid. His father heroically sacrificed himself, giving his wife and young son a chance to flee. When they were cornered, his mother threw him to safety, begging him to run. He had no choice but to flee. Since we know how vile goblins are, you can guess her tragic fate. But enough tragedy. This time, things will go differently. His very first step is to study hard, raising his intelligence and mental stats to the limit. He studied so intensely it worried his mother, while he secretly trained his mana. While normal kids were eating dirt, this boy was busy doing parkour. While local kids watched in awe, his agility and evasion stats skyrocketed. 8 years flew by in the blink of an eye. Arudo sat beneath a tree, perfecting his unique skills. When his mother returned, she happily wished him a happy 8th birthday. She hugged him so tightly he thought he might get crushed. His dad proudly claimed the boy got his handsome looks from him, proposing they start his combat training immediately. His mom congratulated him again, reminding him of his planned evening trip to the local church. At age 8, kids receive magic bracelets that act as identification. Now it was his turn, and the priest told him to hold out his hands. Arudo complied, and the priest fastened the identification bracelet onto his wrist, advising him that it would come in handy when visiting the big city. Warning him not to lose it, the priest smiled. Staring at his wrist, Arudo realized the goblin raid was scheduled to hit in just a few hours. I know what you are thinking. He is just a kid. But this time, Aruto is determined to save his home. Heading into the forest, he opens his system window. To truly boost his physical stats, he realizes he needs to reach level 15. His magic, however, is already at level 32, granting him complete mastery over his childhood skills. The only thing he cannot grasp is how to create physical items. He had not unlocked it yet due to low stats. Realizing it would not hurt to try, Aruto decides to finally activate it. Suddenly, rustling sounds echo. Goblins are already here. Hiding behind a massive tree, he spots 3 scouts marching ahead. Aruto tells himself to stay calm, having slain countless beasts in his past life. But when the monsters spot him, they charge. His first battle begins. It is time to unleash 8 years of training. Channeling his mana, he vows not to fail. He is the village's only hope. He unleashes a blazing fire spell, instantly incinerating the first scout. But as he targets the second, a third goblin lunges at him from behind. Aruto dodges just in time, realizing he cannot make mistakes. After defeating all 3, he knows his spells need more kick. Thankfully, these were just scouts. Instantly, a level-up notification flashes in front of him. Victory tastes sweet as his stats get a much-needed boost. The sudden rush of energy makes him dizzy, but there is no time to rest. A hidden goblin lunges, slicing Aruto's arm. Is this a new wave? After finishing off his attacker, he looks up only to freeze. An entire horde is marching toward his bleeding, injured self. Facing a whole army alone is suicide. Familiar despair creeps back in. Had nothing changed? Was he doomed to lose everything all over again? Suddenly, memories of his lost love flash by. Resolve burns in his eyes. He refuses to give up. Instantly, his magic reaches level 50, unlocking a skill called Grave Reaper. Checking the notification, he realizes he finally unlocked his creation skill. Its real broken potential will only unlock as he levels up further. So that is why it was locked, he realizes. Just as the green horde surrounds him completely, they smell blood, closing in on his injured side. Is this the end? A goblin lunges with a rusty sword, but Naruto barely rolls away in time. He counters with a fireball. Fighting with a bleeding arm is pure agony, and the green monsters keep coming. As 8 beasts rush him at once, Naruto refuses to break. Believing in his magic, he activates his newly unlocked Grave Reaper skill, sending them tumbling deep into a bottomless ravine. And that is where we leave him, staring at his hands, finally proving to you and me that destiny can indeed be rewritten. What a legendary start. Let's dive into the moment our main character gets a massive system level up after crushing those goblins. He remembered that rapid level ups and class advancements always come with pure, agonizing pain. Before he knew it, Naruto blacked out. When he finally opened his eyes, he was freezing, with something strange fluttering right in front of his face. Suddenly, he spotted a small creature that quickly hopped away. What on earth was it? An adorable, translucent slime stood right there, showing its head. He noticed a strange liquid, and wondered if it was safe. Drinking the fluid straight from the slime's head, Naruto instantly felt a rush of energy. The bouncy little creature kept hopping around, keeping his eyes glued to it. What exactly was this thing? Watching it closely, he realized this slime was completely harmless. It actually seemed super friendly, until it suddenly launched itself straight onto Naruto's face. He had no idea what it wanted, and its gooey body was insanely ticklish. Soon, Naruto stood atop a high mountain peak, looking down at his peaceful hometown nestled quietly in the valley below. The slime pointed ahead, but Naruto shook his head. He could not go back. He had someone precious to save and a long road ahead, but he was still way too weak. Was it all just futile? About a mile away lay one of the greatest dungeon cities in the land. His plan was simple: conquer the top floors and grind his level as high as possible. Thinking of the girl he loved, he focused entirely on getting stronger. He pictured the massive city, the brutal fights waiting for him, knowing he only had 7 years left before that fateful day. With the slime wiggling on his shoulder, Naruto mentally apologized to his family for leaving so suddenly. He scribbled a quick farewell letter, explaining he had urgent things he absolutely had to do. This felt like a final goodbye, but he had to set things right. He was deeply grateful to his parents for their endless love, feeling truly blessed to have grown up with such a wonderful mother and father. 8 happy years had flown by. Fighting back tears, Naruto knew it was time to move on. As he walked away from his childhood home, the loyal little slime trailed right behind him. Not knowing if it was safe or if it understood him, Naruto warned the slime to stop following. It would be too dangerous for a weak creature out there. But then, the slime started clapping its tiny limbs. Since she seemed so determined to tag along, Naruto let her stay. Together, the boy and his slime set off. A month later, after taking down a giant wolf, Naruto decided it was finally lunchtime. The slime beside him dragged something heavy over. Naruto realized it was a freshly slain wolf and thanked his little helper as she dropped a glowing magic stone straight into his bag. With these magic stones, funds would definitely not be an issue. Suddenly, the slime bounced away, squeaking as if calling out to him. Naruto followed close behind to see what she found. Did this little slime actually find them a place to sleep? Peeking around a cliff's side with the slime on his shoulder, Naruto spotted a hidden cave. It was the perfect shelter before heading to Kinokaga's tomorrow. Grilling meat over the campfire, Naruto smiled. Hunting low-level beasts made gathering food incredibly easy, a simple routine he was already very used to. His body was finally growing stronger, rapidly matching his powerful past life. Suddenly, a blue system screen popped up, showing he was already level 32 with his stats skyrocketing. He knew grinding inside a real dungeon would make him level up even faster. Sitting on a boulder, Naruto happily munched on a hot skewer. He realized the slime had crawled onto his lap, happily nibbling on its own food. Amused, Naruto offered it some rice, wondering if its stomach was a bottomless pit. Smiling, Naruto felt incredibly lucky to have met this little helper, excited to gather more magic stones together. But when he realized the slime might actually be a dangerous apex predator, he got a pretty big shock. Suddenly, an unseen figure watched Aruto from the shadows. Sensing their gaze, he instantly whipped a wooden skewer straight at the hiding spot, only for the target to dodge with insane speed. This enemy was moving too fast to track, and a sudden, blinding strike slammed right into him. He realized instantly that he could never survive a continuous barrage from someone this fast. Staring ahead, he saw a dark figure, not a monster, but a thief after his magic stones. Before he could react, she dropped right in front of him and snatched his food. Keep your eyes on the screen here, because she is actually a gorgeous beast girl. Aruto stood frozen in shock, watching her devour his lunch before asking if she was a monster. She replied that her name was Majika, a simple traveler, and asked who he was. Introducing himself, Aruto secretly thought she did not seem like a threat at all. She actually looked pretty friendly as she met his gaze. When Aruto complimented her adorable ears, she proudly mentioned she was from the squirrel tribe, before instantly dismissing the topic altogether. She claimed she didn't really care anyway. Aruto just gave her a confused look. Suddenly, she vanished from sight, instantly reappearing right next to the campfire where his dinner was cooking. She casually asked if she could finish the rest of his food. Dumbfounded by her insane speed, Aruto could only stare, realizing she had not even said please. Meanwhile, his angry little slime tried to steal the skewer back from her hands. The next morning, Aruto woke up to find her following him, with the slime sitting happily on her shoulder. She argued that since Aruto was just a kid, and she was heading to the same city anyway, she would tag along. When he asked if she was not a kid herself, she claimed looking like an adult did not make you one. Aruto insisted he was a grown-up, but honestly, you and I both know he is still just a kid. Shaking it off, he suggested they start moving to make the journey go faster. Aruto smiled and she happily agreed. A short walk later, he pointed toward the horizon, announcing they had finally reached Kinetagris. The massive city walls towered high before them. Walking through the main gates, a merchant girl instantly ran up, offering cheap taxes and welcoming them inside. Since ancient times, Kinetagris was known as a chaotic city home to all kinds of fantasy races. This was all because of the massive dungeon towering at its center, drawing adventurers from everywhere. Walking through the busy streets, Majika looked visibly overwhelmed by the crowds. When Aruto asked what was wrong, she softly admitted she had never seen so many people before. He smiled, explaining that he also grew up in a quiet little village. She replied that she had always lived on the streets. Aruto confessed he felt just as nervous on his first visit, but Majika quickly pointed out he had claimed he had never been here. He clarified that he actually visited once with his parents when he was 10, remembering how incredibly alive the entire city felt back then. Looking around at the unchanged streets, Aruto wondered what major events would unfold over the next 2 years, knowing he had to stay alert. Majika then broke his thoughts, asking where they were going. He told her he was heading to the Adventurers Guild to secure some funds for their stay, asking if she wanted to come along. She happily agreed, and they soon arrived at the counter to trade their magic stones. But the receptionist gave him a cold look, telling him he was in the wrong place. As Aruto stared in surprise, the man rudely told him to get out, snapping that the guild was no place for kids. In response, Aruto dumped his entire bag onto the counter, revealing a massive pile of glowing magic stones. The receptionist stared in absolute shock, demanding to know where a kid got all these. Aruto calmly told him he got them from hunting. Pointing at Majika, he lied that his companion did not know how to sell magic stones, which is why he was doing it instead. The man stared at her in shock. She tried to protest, but Aruto quickly quieted her. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this lie plays out. Alright, you and I are about to see our main character strike it rich. Grinning, Aruto realizes his haul is worth 1990 units. The teller counts out 2 gold, 29 silver, and 85 copper. Still, Aruto feels completely wiped out from the grind. Was he exhausted from being so young, or was it the toll of his rapid growth? Stashing the coins in his bag, Aruto asks if he can sign up to become a finder. The receptionist wonders why a literal kid wants to be an adventurer. Aruto points to Majika, claiming she is his adult sponsor, explaining he has a massive goal to achieve. Majika opens her mouth to protest, but Aruto shushes her instantly, telling the clerk to hurry up because they are in a rush. Outside the guild, Majika tells him to take her along and put her to use. Flustered, Aruto apologizes. He explains that as a kid, he struggles to speak clearly, so he just wanted her assistance. He asks her if gathering magic stones is a bad idea, but she warns him it won't do anything to build up his reputation. Walking behind him, Majika is stunned to hear him dismiss fame entirely. Nobody gets stronger just by growing their reputation, he says, leaving her completely shocked by his mature mindset. Striding ahead, Aruto says that now they have cash, they should secure a hotel room. He offers to buy her dinner to thank her, but says she is free to go if she has other plans. Magica agrees to join him, but with a cheeky condition. Either she gets paid or she stays in his room. Hearing this, Aruto casually tells her to follow him. What a wild woman, Aruto thinks to himself. As night falls, he admits he is glad she tagged along, since he expected her to refuse. Sitting in their room, the two chat. Aruto explains his messy look usually gets him rejected from nice places, like this hotel with its amazing food. He is sure Magica will absolutely love the meal. Now watch closely as he talks, because Magica is staring intently, trying to figure him out. When he notices, she quickly brushes it off and announces she is taking a bath. As she starts removing her cloak, a panicked Aruto tells her to undress in the bathroom. Meanwhile, his little slime happily plops. Alright, you and I are about to follow Magica as she gets ready, facing a totally new experience. Stepping out of the shower, she planned to head straight to sleep and eat later. But then, she spotted Aruto practicing magic. The raw mana radiating from him was insane, definitely not something any ordinary person could ever pull off. As he sat there meditating with closed eyes, she wondered who this guy really was. She had spent years searching the world for someone specific, yet, out of nowhere, Aruto had just conveniently tagged along with her. Watching him, she saw ridiculous power and skills she had never seen before. She needed to get closer and investigate. It was obvious this kid was hiding a massive secret. Thinking back to his words, she was shocked by how maturely he spoke. Could he actually be the savior she was looking for, the legendary figure destined to change this world? But the prophecy clearly stated the hero would be reborn as a girl, meaning Aruto could not be him. Even so, looking at him now, she had a strong, undeniable gut feeling. He would be the key to unlocking a whole new era. She just knew it. But the next second, Aruto collapsed onto the bed, completely wiped out from his intense training. Watching him sleep like a log after draining his energy, she couldn't help but worry. Why was he pushing himself so brutally hard? It honestly felt like he was running from someone or something. Now pay attention, because a shadow was watching them from the rooftop. Seconds later, a figure crept toward the window, making her wonder if it was a real thief. The intruder had barely any presence, hinting at a super low level. She could have easily blasted him, but she decided to see how Aruto would react, so she feigned sleep. Stepping inside, the thief lunged for the boy. But Aruto stirred, slipped a hand behind his back, woke up, and casually said hello. The shocked thief immediately pulled a knife and slashed at him. Magica jumped up, screaming a warning. But the blade stopped just inches from Aruto's neck as the thief barked, "Do not move." He promised not to hurt them if they just cooperated. But Magica and Aruto weren't buying it, demanding to know what he wanted. Did he just want money, and how did he find them? Aruto pressed, leaving the guy speechless. I know what you were thinking, negotiations. Nope. Aruto just launched a massive air cannon, blasting the intruder straight out the window. Magica rushed over, asking if he was okay. Aruto just shrugged, replying that everything was completely fine. Staring down at where the thief landed, she realized Aruto had cast advanced magic with just a simple gesture. It was a lethal amount of power. How much training did this kid do to reach this level? She turned to ask him, but he was already snoring. Magica realized this kid was destined for greatness in more ways than one. Then she noticed the thief's knife lying right next to the bed. The next morning, they headed down to the tavern for breakfast. As plate after plate of food arrived, Aruto asked Magica if she was liking the meal and enjoying herself. With her mouth stuffed, she mumbled that it was the best food she had ever eaten. Aruto just laughed, telling her to take her time and not rush. After thanking the staff, they headed outside. Magica thanked Aruto, happily declaring she was stuffed. He teased her, joking that by tomorrow, she would probably eat enough to feed 10 whole people. She then asked what the plan was. Aruto explained that while he wanted to visit the dungeon, last night's surprise guest had changed things. Holding the thief's knife, he planned their next move. He entered the guild as two suspicious men watched. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Let's dive into today's story, where the merchant who bought Aruto's magic stones immediately recognizes him from yesterday. Aruto just smiles and asks if he's appraising magic stones today. The man explains he is talking to the boss right now, telling Aruto to come back later. But Aruto just replies that the timing is actually perfect. He wants to speak with the boss directly, casually asking if there is a thief lurking in the guild. The boss stares at him, demanding details, so Aruto explains that a suspicious intruder broke into their room yesterday. Even though they managed to chase him away, the thief was clearly after the money from those magic stones. Oddly enough, the criminal did not even ransack the room. He knew exactly where the cash was hidden, targeting Arudo's bag directly. Arudo delivers his final deduction. The robber has to be someone who was standing right inside the guild during their earlier transaction. Wrapping up his theory, Arudo looks straight at the leaders. The boss nods, admitting that his theory is highly likely. The boss turns to Lion, who is sitting right across from him, asking if he noticed anyone suspicious. Lion just shrugs, giving a vague answer about not knowing. Frustrated, the boss demands a clear response. Arudo watches them silently. Lion finally claims he saw absolutely nothing, but then, Arudo points to Mika, revealing that she actually managed to brand the thief with a magical mark during the fight. Mika looks completely startled by his words. Arudo requests that if the boss spots any man with a magical brand on his hand, he should be arrested immediately. Right then, Lion quietly pulls down his sleeves. Arudo hands a drop dagger to the boss, explaining that while it is a high-quality weapon, it must be given to the guards as evidence. All right, you and I are starting a wild fantasy recap. The guild boss examines the dagger, but Lion suddenly speaks up, asking if Arudo can just keep the weapon. He argues that victors have every right to claim the spoils, and parting with such a beautiful blade would be a crime. The boss starts to agree, but Lion instantly steps over to Arudo. Forcing the weapon into Arudo's hands, he praises its incredible quality, telling him to guard this priceless treasure. Arudo tries to shove him back, clearly annoyed by the pushy guy. The boss demands they keep transactions professional and orders beefed up security. Lion proudly nods, telling his leader he can count on him completely. Once they leave, Magica points out that the man was clearly a thief, questioning if letting him go was smart. Arudo shrugs, saying they gave warnings, so it's not their problem anymore. She then wonders if his actual goal was just to get a weapon. Arudo looks at her, a wave of panic hitting him. Did she just read him like an open book? With that job done, their real adventure finally begins. Standing at the dungeon gates, Arudo looks up at the massive tower. Magica admits she can't even see the top of it. He explains this is a legendary, world-class labyrinth, a massive, mysterious dungeon where nobody knows who built it or where it actually ends. Stepping through the portal, they instantly teleport to a new zone. Arudo points out that the lower level spans from the 1st to the 25th floors. It's a relatively safe training ground meant for rookie adventurers. But just as he says this, a loud roar echoes. Nearby fighters shout that a dangerous monster has escaped from an upper floor. They scream at him to run, warning that his basic spells won't work. Suddenly, a massive horned rat charges straight for Arudo. Panicked adventurers scream at the kid to run for his life, but Arudo calmly stands his ground, muttering the word, grave. Boom! A massive sinkhole opens, swallowing the beast instantly. Arudo immediately realizes he messed up by using way too much power, nearly putting everyone in danger. Magic peers down in shock, alongside terrified witnesses who can't comprehend this giant hole. Though some suspect an earthquake, there are no tremors. Arudo quickly covers his tracks, claiming the floor must have been rotten and simply collapsed. Once they're alone, Magica asks why he hid his power. Arudo answers that nobody would believe him anyway, so they should just speed run to the upper floors. Pay attention here, the 26th floor is where things get serious, and the real maze of nightmares finally begins. Soon after, Magica runs into a giant bear. Arudo watches in awe as she obliterates it in one hit. She shrugs off his praise, reminding him that he's no slacker either. Arudo draws his new dagger, eager to test it out. Instantly, the system alerts him of a massive boost, granting plus 110 dexterity. He's absolutely thrilled, realizing this dagger is way more broken than he expected. He wishes he had a status screen to track this instead of just feeling it, but this blade is definitely a keeper. But even with this overpowered gear, he can't get lazy. He needs to hunt down more of these bears to keep pushing his limits. Since these mid-tier monsters are way too easy, he decides to hunt bigger prey. Defeating the remaining beasts, Arudo announces they are finally heading to the dangerous upper levels. Magica quietly looks at the fallen beasts. Arudo charges into a dark cave, instantly surrounded by a swarm of demons. He smirks, fully confident he can crush them. Seconds later, the demons are crushed beneath the falling stones Arudo manipulated. He exhales in relief, announcing they have finally made it to the 50th floor. This is where the high-risk zone begins, a deadly place where only the top elite adventurers dare to set foot. Since the monsters get insanely stronger with every single floor, they must grind and level up like crazy right here. I know what you're thinking, she's onto him. Sure enough, Magica turns to Arudo, questioning why his fighting style is so incredibly strange. Arudo is completely caught off guard. Strange? If she knows a better, faster way to fight, he practically begs her to teach him, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. She quickly clarifies, explaining that the beasts he just crushed would easily wipe out high-ranking party members. Frankly, it irritated her how easily he slaughtered a whole mob of them by himself. Staring him down, she demands to know the truth. Aruto just tilts his head, asking if she genuinely thinks his way of combat is that weird. She nods, saying it looks totally abnormal to anyone else, wondering why he's so shocked. Right then, Aruto realizes Magica is only the second person to ever truly see his real self. Before her, only Hana saw past his disguise. He remembers his past life, where even at level 99, he was forced to fight alone while other top-tier heroes had massive followings. Everyone ignored him because of his trash stats, the brutal reality of their system. But now, Aruto realizes there might be others who can see past those numbers. Her curiosity piqued, Magica asks if he's even a real human. Smiling, Aruto promises her that he is absolutely 100% human. Though deep down, he knows it's a stretch, considering he died and reincarnated. Magica sighs at his grin, concluding that he is just an incredibly weird guy. Aruto groans at her bluntness. Just then, the system dinged with a level-up notification, and they pushed deeper into the cavern. Confident he can handle the 50th floor, Aruto suggests they go further. His memories warn him of a deadly beast nearby, and right on cue, a massive ogre blocks their path. He remembers how brutal this fight was in his previous life, and now he is curious to see how quickly he can slice it to pieces. Magica senses the ogre's murderous intent, warning that it is far stronger than anything they have fought so far. She offers to flank it from behind, but Aruto refuses, wanting to take it down completely solo. She thinks he has lost his mind, warning that one wrong move means instant death. But Aruto smiles, explaining he needs this life-or-death battle to measure his true power limits. Unsheathing his blade, he steps up to face the beast. He lunges forward, striking with all his might, but the ogre's skin is as hard as solid steel. Still, he manages to draw blood. The enraged ogre retaliates, grazing his cheek. Dodging the follow-up swing, Aruto knows his strikes are definitely doing real damage. If he keeps dodging and chipping away at the exact same wound, victory is guaranteed. But as he lands after another quick slash, Magica gasps in pure disbelief. She is completely stunned at how easily he took down such a terrifying threat. Dusting himself off, Aruto admits he barely had to put in any real effort. He wonders if this is his peak power right now. Suddenly, his slime companion drops a massive, glittering diamond at his feet. Aruto frowns, wondering why a low-tier ogre dropped such rare loot. The atmosphere suddenly grows heavy. Feeling a chill, Aruto asks Magica if she hears that strange noise. Standing right behind him, she looks around, asking what sound he is talking about. And that's where we leave it. Aruto warns they have to escape, but Magica whispers that running is already completely impossible. All right, you and I are jumping right into a moment where one wrong move means death. Look at that colossal ogre emerging from the pitch-black cave. This beast is covered in magic ivy, a parasite that drains the power of stronger monsters. Facing it down, Aruto is deeply confused. Why is this thing on the 70th floor when they usually only show up 10 floors higher? Aruto was already struggling with smaller enemies, and now this giant is blocking their path. Quickly stuffing the slime back into his bag, he looks over at Magica and tells her they need to run right now. But Magica absolutely refuses to run. She knows this monster is incredibly powerful, but she believes it has limits. Glowing energy surges through her gloves as she readies herself. She had trained her whole life to stand beside the hero, believing she was second to none. But meeting Aruto made her realize her past efforts were nowhere near enough. Determined to win, she charges forward and unleashes a powerful strike straight at the beast. But as the smoke clears, she realizes her attack barely even scratched it. The furious ogre immediately swings back. She narrowly dodges the heavy blows, realizing she is faster than her opponent. Since one hit did nothing, she needs to hit it with everything she has all at once. Even with her insane speed, the ogre catches her with its ivy and crushes her in its massive grip. Just in time, Aruto fires an air blade, slicing the vines and freeing her. Aruto asks if she is okay. She thanks him, though she feels incredibly frustrated that a mere child had to save her. Pushing the doubt aside, she channels her magic once more. Pay close attention here, because she is about to unleash her ultimate move, summoning the blinding radiance of 1,000 burning stars. Activating her powerful artifact, Star Rain, she blasts the ogre with absolute force. Running completely out of mana after this secret spell, she is certain the beast must be dead. But as the dust settles, she stares in horror as the giant stands there completely unharmed. Before she can move, the ogre raises its massive foot right over her. She looks up, realizing her absolute best just was not enough. Suddenly, the ogre stomps down with crushing force, but Aruto is already moving to pull her out of harm's way. Aruto scoops her up into his arms, telling her to leave everything else to him. He runs to safety and hands her over to the slime to look after her, before immediately turning back to face the threat. Staring down the massive beast, Aruto knows he cannot afford to lose. He charges forward, fully aware he lacks Magica's speed, but a sudden crushing attack cuts his thoughts short. Watching this happen, Magica screams out in terror. Gasping for air, Aruto instinctively blocks the heavy strike, looking for any chance to strike back. Analyzing his enemy, Aruto knows the magical ivy is still weak against fire, but simply burning the vines is completely useless, since they will just grow right back in seconds. He needs a strike that deals actual, lasting damage. Tightening his grip on his sword, he leaps forward, knowing he cannot pierce that thick hide without aiming for a precise weak point. Locking onto his target, Aruto fires a massive fireball directly into the giant's back, collapsing to the ground as he watches the explosion rip through the beast. You and I both know how absolutely insane this is. A literal child just took down a giant, before completely blacking out from pure exhaustion right in front of her. When they finally wake up, a cute little slime is hovering right over their faces. The bright sun is shining, leaving them both completely confused about how they actually got there. Aruto asks the slime, Rue, if she was the one who saved them, and she happily chirps back in agreement. Hugging the little slime, he thanks her, calling her the most reliable ally ever. He then warns Magica that staying passed out here is dangerous, and they are incredibly lucky to be alive. Magica stays quiet for a moment, then mutters an apology, saying she is heading back to the hotel. Aruto agrees to take a quick break first, but he is secretly incredibly shocked by her behavior. How could Magica even possess an artifact? These are legendary holy tools forged by God himself, so incredibly rare that you could count all of them on one hand. That artifact was Star Rain. Recalling memories from his past life, Aruto realizes a terrifying truth. The wielder of this specific weapon is doomed to die in 7 years. Soaking in the bath that night, Aruto ponders her secret power. The holy artifact known as the Hand of Justice chooses its wielder based on 2 very specific, dangerous traits. She is slated to become criminal number 5, Machia Exterterra. Declared enemies of God alongside 5 others, they will eventually face a total elimination order from the Vatican. It is only a matter of time. Aruto calls up his skills scoreboard, a glowing interface appearing. Staring at the numbers, he guesses Magica's life indicator is currently at 4. Back in the dungeon, her raw mana and absolute barrier completely outclassed him. She is on a whole different level, vastly stronger than him. The power gap between them is massive, yet she is destined to be destroyed by the Vatican in 7 years. Sinking beneath the warm water, Aruto realizes just how weak he truly is. Can he really change her tragic fate? As he wonders, the little slime suddenly pops up right in front of him, making him splash up in surprise. Laughing, he asks if she wants to join him. The slime chirps happily in response, so he steps out of the tub to give his round friend a good wash, gently scrubbing Rue with a washcloth. Aruto admits they only survive because of her. He promises to scrub her until she sparkles, making the little slime bounce with pure joy and squeak in delight. He wonders if he should stop, since she seems extremely ticklish near her heels. It is a weird thought, since he never expected slimes to even have heels. Suddenly, the slime starts sparkling so brightly it nearly blinds him. Laughing, he asks if she always looks this polished when clean, and if she is happy with her bath. Rue jumps excitedly, but suddenly melts into a gooey puddle. Confused, Aruto wonders if washing her was a bad idea, quickly pushing her back into the water to help her reform. Heading back to his room with the slime, Aruto worries he might have scared her. But his thoughts are interrupted as Magica rises from the sofa, quietly greeting him. Sensing she has something important on her mind, he suggests they talk outside. As he brings over some drinks, he notes she has been completely silent since they got back. Did something happen during the fight? Handing her a warm mug, Aruto points out how beautiful the sunset is. They both watch the sky in silence before she turns to face him. She quietly confesses that she believed no magician could ever match her power, admitting that her extreme confidence in her own training had made her far too arrogant. But now I see how weak I really am. From this moment on, I am going to focus entirely on training alone, she declares. She explains that staying with him will only hold her back, so she wants her own room. She vows that next time, she definitely will not lose to him. Looking him dead in the eye, she challenges him to see who will be stronger when they next meet. And that is where we leave them, with Aruto realizing that hard work, not just raw talent, is what will truly change their fate. Alright, you and I are about to watch Aruto make a promise to grow 100 times stronger, completely unaware of the dark powers waiting to crush him. They laughed, celebrating how far they'd come, never imagining a force existed that could wipe them out in an instant. Back at his hotel room, Aruto started packing up his things. Double-checking his bag, he made sure nothing was left behind. He stared at the empty bed where Magica used to sleep, closed his eyes, and stepped out, determined to keep his promise. After that, he lost all track of time, throwing his entire soul into training. His first big goal? Leveling up his crafting skill. Guided by his system, he found the ultimate grinding spot, a deep forest rich in mana and packed with rare collectible crystals. This was exactly what his crafting skills needed. He began training by channeling his mana to shatter rocks into tiny pieces. His magic control quickly leveled up, and after dedicating days to mining stones, his crafting reached level 20, unlocking the blacksmith subclass. Just as he hoped, crafting didn't just give him offensive moves like Grave Reaper. It also let him forge powerful items using dungeon materials, fire, and magic. Now, he never had to worry about getting kicked out of a forge again. But pay attention here. While training hard with his sword, he suddenly unlocked a brand new skill. A bit later, while clashing with a massive cave monster, Aruto realized his limits. Pushing to the next floor right now was way too risky. Soon, notifications popped up. He mastered Art of the Blade, surpassed level 40, and unlocked the two-handed style. Aruto immediately drew his weapon, eager to test this new power on his foe. With the battle won, his level shot up. He realized using skills like Typhoon boosted his Grave Reaper level. By infusing it with magic, he could control the massive ground fissures, making his attacks absolutely lethal. His overall level kept climbing alongside his combat masteries. The system finally confirmed Aruto had reached level 40, with all of his primary skills getting a massive 30-point boost. With his crafting and manipulation fully ready, Aruto opened his system window. Manipulation was simple but handy. It let him absorb mana to slide objects in any direction he wanted. Extending his hand toward a heavy stone, Aruto activated his new skill. Sure, the rock slowly sliding aside wasn't as flashy as Grave Reaper, but it worked. Knowing this utility skill would come in clutch, he kept practicing. Days melted into weeks, and soon, winter arrived. While walking through town, a rumor caught his ear. Two men were gossiping about a total freak on the upper floors. Apparently, this weird new guy had single-handedly wiped out over 1,000 high-level monsters. The other guy nodded, mentioning the weirdo was apparently just a kid who carried a weak slime everywhere. Walking past them, Aruto realized with a sweat drop that they were talking about him. They stared at him in utter disbelief. High-level hunters always ran those dangerous floors in parties. Aruto walked by quietly, realizing his achievements were finally getting some serious attention. In the past, keeping a low profile meant nobody cared what he did. But things were clearly starting to shift. Sure, he wasn't thrilled about being called a weirdo, but he let it slide. Later at his inn, Aruto told the owner he'd be heading back to the dungeon and wanted to check out for a few days. The owner warned him to stay safe, then casually asked if that girl he always hung out with was doing okay. Aruto froze, realizing he hadn't seen Magica since they got separate rooms. The owner added that she hadn't come back in days, and it was getting worrying. Hearing that, Aruto's chest tightened up. Gripping his jacket, he tried to tell himself she was fine, but a bad feeling crept in. And trust me, you and I know that bad feelings in these stories are never wrong. Just then, a Vatican knight rode into town. Seeing the crowds whispering about the church mobilizing, Aruto panicked. He bolted out of the inn, ignoring the owner calling after him. He didn't look back. His mind raced as the future he remembered began clashing with reality. It hit him his own actions must have changed Magica's fate as well. Why hadn't he realized this sooner? Had the Vatican already targeted her? What if the timeline shifted, and her execution was happening right now? All he could do was run and pray she was safe. As he dashed past a royal carriage, a mysterious figure watched him from the window, murmuring about how clever the boy was. Reaching the dungeon, Aruto desperately expanded his presence-sensing skill. Someone with her massive power level should stand out like a beacon, and he prayed he could trace her signal in time. Spotting her familiar silhouette, he shouted her name. Magica spun around, her eyes widening in surprise. She smiled and asked how he'd been doing since they last met. Relieved by her calm aura, he realized his worries might have been for nothing. Panting heavily, he tried to play it cool, but she immediately asked why he was out of breath. Too embarrassed to admit he panicked over her, he pretended he was just out for a casual jog. He claimed he saw her and decided to stop by before continuing his run. Noticing the biting winter air and her light clothes, Aruto took off his warm scarf. He gently wrapped it around her neck, telling her to stay warm, which she happily accepted. Suddenly, an eerie anomaly in the sky caught their attention. They both stared upward, completely baffled as a massive black vortex formed, giving them a heavy feeling of pure dread. The pitch-black portal expanded, unleashing a suffocating, oppressive aura. Sensing immediate catastrophe, Aruto screamed at Magica to get the nearby citizens to safety. Then, the black mass began to tear open. Aruto stared in absolute horror. Towering before them was a legendary demon, a caliber of beast that commands high-tier monsters. Why on earth was something this devastating appearing right inside the city? Without hesitation, the monster began tearing through the surrounding buildings. It was a weapon of mass destruction that wouldn't stop until the entire town was burned to ash. But Aruto was completely frozen, reliving the trauma of his past life's fire. The sheer, overwhelming difference in their levels paralyzed his body, rendering his willpower totally useless. He screamed at his limbs to move, knowing everyone would die if he stayed paralyzed. Suddenly, Magica reached out and wrapped his warm scarf back around his own neck. Telling him to trust her, she promised everything would be fine before launching herself straight at the demon. Aruto could only watch, utterly stunned by her incredible, blinding speed. She was on a whole different level now. She landed a direct, heavy hit, but the demon instantly regenerated. Magica realized normal attacks were useless. She needed one massive, fatal blow. She prepared to unleash her artifact, Star Rain, but the demon vanished and reappeared right behind her. Spinning around, she barely managed to dodge his lightning-fast counterattack. This monster wasn't leaving her a single opening to activate her weapon. As concrete shattered around them, Aruto watched in terror, his mind screaming out for Magica's safety. He hated himself for just standing there like a useless spectator. Had his 8 years of training been a complete waste, he wasn't reborn just to watch his world burn again. Desperation ignited a wild flare of mana in his hands. Staring at the glowing energy, Aruto wondered if he could cast magic despite his paralysis. He just needed this to work. Looking at Magica, he saw her struggling against the demon's gale force winds. One clean hit will kill her, and trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. All right, you and I are about to watch a desperate struggle. Magica waits to use her artifact, but the demon blasts her back. This fight is just completely hopeless. Even with Aruto gathering mana, he will not make it in time. Meanwhile, the demon conjures a massive, spinning fireball right over its head. Staring at the flames, Magica braces for inevitable death and closes her eyes. But suddenly, Aruto activates his manipulation skill, deflecting the massive fire blast far into the distance. Aruto can barely believe he actually redirected the blast. Magica wonders if he really altered its path, just as the giant demon suddenly loses its balance. Looking at Aruto, she realizes he is just a young man. As the falling demon crashes toward her, she sees her opening. Aruto screams to use Star Rain. She unleashes her magical attack, battering the beast until it completely vanishes. Believing they have actually succeeded, Magica rushes over to Aruto, asking if he is okay. Helping him up, he explains he is just exhausted from his recent level up. But as she suddenly hoists him onto her back, he has no clue what she is doing. She insists on carrying him to the inn. He protests, but she argues that he has already done so much for her, begging him to let her help this once. As they escape, Magica admits she has never seen a spell like his. Realizing she means his manipulation skill, Aruto explains he got it after their last meeting. Now, check this out. He effortlessly teleports his scarf straight onto Magica using mana. Shook, she asks if he did that, and he explains he can move objects at will. He can redirect wind attacks, block incoming strikes, and eventually, even control enemies like puppets. Magica is completely blown away by this overpowered skill. But Aruto admits he cannot move while using it. Blushing, he tells her he could never have beaten the demon alone, giving her all the credit for saving the city. Magica modestly says they both did their best, making him chuckle. But a dark thought hits him: if these demon attacks keep happening, the entire city will be wiped out. He cannot recall this happening in his past life, meaning someone else must have defeated it back then. Who could possibly be strong enough to pull that off? Suddenly, sensing a terrifying aura, he tells her to stop right there on the rooftop. She points out they are not at the inn yet, but he frantically insists they halt. Magica freezes mid-step on the roof. Looking down, Aruto instantly recognizes the terrifying dark figure below. The black clothes, the heavy otherworldly mana radiating from him is absolutely unmistakable. This was the exact magician who murdered Hana in his past life. Standing right below them, looking away, is the dreaded sorcerer Gamagen. Magica notices Aruto looks deeply shaken, a face she has never seen him make. She asks who the man is, and Aruto whispers that it is Gamagen Salwe, one of the 12 commanders. Even she has heard that name, for Gamagen is feared as the world's strongest magician. But as she processes this, Aruto begins channeling his mana, making her ask what he is doing. Blinding rage takes over. Naruto snaps that it does not concern her. He has to kill this man. Magica blocks him, asking if he really expects to fight in his state. She grabs his hand, reminding him he is way too weak after his level up to face a monster like this. He tells her to let go, but she begs him to calm down and sit. She screams, trying to make him realize he cannot win right now. Naruto finally cools down, accepting that in his current condition, he stands absolutely zero chance. You can feel Naruto's absolute despair as he slumps onto the roof. Meanwhile, Gamagan is just chilling below, while an ally asks if he really was the one who summoned that demon. Gamagan casually admits it. He just wanted to test out a rare summoning artifact he found, but it turned out to be completely useless. It could only summon a weak, low-rank monster. Crushing the artifact, he grumbles that before he could even test its strength, someone else had already easily defeated it. His associate points out that even a weak demon can easily wipe out a small nation, and the 12 commanders are only supposed to obey direct royal orders. Their duty is protecting the kingdom, making this stunt completely unacceptable. Suddenly, Gamagan glares at the man, lifting him into the air by his throat with magic. Gamagan coldly asks why he is voicing his opinions on these matters, suggesting it would be much better for his health to just keep his mouth shut. Choking, the man desperately begs for forgiveness before slamming onto the ground. The magician then orders his carriage, wanting to head back to the capital for his research. Just then, another subordinate asks if he still has not found the person he was searching for, or if he is actually going to leave empty-handed. Gamagan says that Target is not here. But boarding his carriage, he glances up, noticing Naruto and Magica. He notes that finding one of the Vatican's enemies in a place like this is a real surprise. Naruto and Magica freeze under his terrifying gaze, while the magician guesses that she must have slain his demon, admitting she has got some serious power. He imagines harvesting rare, magical ingredients from her body parts, wondering what he should do with her, but stops himself since there are no orders to eliminate her yet. Defying the king would ruin the funding for his twisted experiments, which is too big a risk. He tells his driver to move out, confident they will meet again. As the carriage rolls away, they watch in absolute silence, completely shaken to the core by that monster's terrifying look. Magica shivers, knowing they would have died instantly. Naruto just stares at the ground, mentally kicking himself for being stupid enough to think he could take on a monstrous commander like that. He silently vows to become far stronger before their next encounter. A few days later, the local lord wants to publicly reward Magica for defeating the demon. Magica flatly refuses, pointing out they are completely ignoring Naruto. But the arrogant officials refuse to credit a low-class commoner with possessing such incredible magic power. The lord ultimately drops the matter. Walking through the streets later, Naruto asks Magica if she really does not care about getting the glory. Magica remains firm, venting her frustration over how the high society refuses to recognize his unbelievable magical strength. Naruto shrugs, saying status dictates everything in their world. Smiling at her, he realizes that only Magica and Hana have ever ignored these stupid class rules. He tells her to stop worrying and focus on training instead. Hearing him speak with such calm confidence, she wonders if he is really doing okay. He mentions planning a dungeon run tomorrow, but as they walk, a strange man watches them closely, causing Naruto to stop dead in his tracks and turn. She asks what is wrong, and he says the guy looks familiar. It is a guild employee named Lion, sitting on the dirt holding a sign begging for affection. Lion gasps, shouting that it is him. Stick with me to see how this wild reunion plays out next time. Alright, you and I are diving into a wild story where our main character Naruto gets stalked by this total weirdo. Naruto pretends he does not know him, but the guy begs for cash, claiming his face is unforgettable. Naruto and Magica just walk right past him. Naruto completely ignores the beggar, casually asking Magica which dungeon floor she is training on. Suddenly, the guy throws himself at Naruto's feet, begging for money. Annoyed, Naruto tries to kick him off, asking why he has zero shame begging random strangers. Undeterred, he looks at both of them and says he believes in their potential. They just stare back in dead silence as he proposes they form a party. He formally introduces himself as Lion. Since he is an adventurer too, he thinks they would make a great team. An extra sword is always useful in a fight, right? Plus, he proudly reveals he has a super rare hero class. But Naruto just gives a cold smile and immediately rejects the offer. Lion is shocked, but Naruto explains that even if a hero class is rare, he doubts Lion is actually useful. Magica just yawns in the background while Lion begs on his knees. Lion claims he left his guild just for this, but Naruto claps back, saying he probably got caught doing something bad and got kicked out. Lion gasps, completely shocked that Naruto read him like an open book. Aruto just sighs, saying this drama is exactly why he prefers hunting monsters in dungeons to make money. Suddenly, Lion jumps all over Aruto again, begging to join. Magica finally snaps, throws half a loaf of bread at him, and tells him he is being incredibly annoying. Lion slumps onto the dirt in defeat while Aruto and Magica walk away, with Magica casually complaining that she is hungry. Eruto promises to take her to a great spot he found. Flash forward a few days, and Eruto is slaying monsters deep inside a dungeon. He wipes them out, leveling up to 42, while his sword skill hits 43. His custom blade works beautifully, but even after all this time, Lion is still stalking him. Now pay attention, because this is where everything gets wild. While Aruto prepares to go up, Lion suddenly bursts into view, chased by bloodthirsty wolves. Aruto is shocked to see him here. Lion begs him for rescue, so Aruto tells him to get down before blasting the wolves with a massive wave of fire magic. Lion is amazed by the cool attack and drops to his knees, crying and thanking Aruto for saving his life once again. He admits he got lost while stalking Aruto, ending up on a dangerous high-level floor. Aruto scolds him, saying beginners do not belong here. Lion begs again to form a party. An exhausted Aruto asks how many times he has to repeat that Lion is just a useless burden and he has no time to waste on him. Kneeling, Lion quietly apologizes. Aruto turns his back, telling him to just go home, but suddenly, a stray wolf leaps straight at Lion from the shadows. Aruto quickly slashes the beast, then rushes over to the bloodied Lion, asking if he is okay. But kneeling beside him, Aruto cannot believe his eyes. Guilt washes over Aruto. He thinks this is his fault, believing that if he had just let Lion join, this tragedy would have never happened. Hearing this, Lion instantly jumps up, excited that Aruto might accept him. A shocked Aruto wonders how he is still breathing, as Lion casually rubs his neck and reveals that he is actually a vampire. Let's pause for a second, because this twist is absolutely insane. Vampires are legendary creatures of the night, feared by everyone and rumored to be immortal. They are feared, just like deadly monsters. But when Aruto asks if the rumors are real, Lion explains that vampires are mostly normal, and those horror stories are just human lies. Their bodies are mostly human and fatal wounds can still kill them. But then, Lion boasts that he is completely unique and invulnerable. Aruto wonders if this means he has extreme regeneration, and asks how he got that nasty neck wound in the first place. Lion says it is a long story, adding that he feels zero pain. Intrigued, Aruto asks if anyone can learn to get a skill like that. Lion explains that nobody can just learn this skill, nor did he earn it himself. He warns Aruto that the truth is unbelievable, then reveals he is actually from another world. Aruto is completely shocked. Lion explains he used to live in Japan as a normal guy, died in an accident, and woke up here. In his final moments, absolute terror had gripped him. He prayed desperately to survive, waking up in this world with a body that cannot die. Hearing this, Aruto realizes there must be other reincarnated souls out there too. But Lion explains his pain resistance was not free. He only got it after living here for a few years. At first, everything felt perfect. He was a vampire, immune to the fear of death, and had a rare hero class. He truly believed he was the main character of an epic fantasy story. But that dream shattered. A brutal vampire hunt swept through the land, led by the church, and Lion had to watch his own parents get murdered. Since they could not kill him, they dragged him away as a heretic. In the name of God, they tortured him endlessly. He could not die, but felt every single agonizing blow. The constant torture made him pray for death as an escape, but he survived. After 50 years of hell, his mind broke, and he completely lost the ability to feel physical pain. He remembers escaping while tied to a burning stake. He spent centuries running and hiding his true identity, eventually arriving here to find work at the local guild. After sharing this tragic, movie-like backstory, Lion looks at Aruto and tells him that this painful skill is something nobody else can ever learn. Hearing this horror story, Aruto is stunned by the immense suffering Lion endured. He apologizes for asking, but Lion just smiles, saying those dark days are far behind him now. But Lion confesses his one massive regret. If only he had been stronger, he could have saved his family. That is his only real sorrow. This triggers Aruto's own memories of his past life. Lion explains he wants to get stronger to protect others, asking to join the team one more time. But Aruto silently turns and walks away. Lion watches him go, thinking he failed. But Aruto stops and asks how long he plans on standing around out there. He tells Lion to hurry up, teasing if he is too scared of training. Lion beams with absolute joy, totally thrilled. And that is where you and I see them truly connect. Watching Lion, Aruto realizes they both share a deep, burning desire to protect those they love, prompting them to train together. Aruto goes back to slaying monsters, sharpening his deadly Reaper skills. But soon, a mob of enemies targets Lion nearby, forcing him to scream for his mentor's help. Seeing the massive horde, Aruto realizes Lion needs to unleash his vampire strength. While Aruto tears through the monsters, Lion just covers his head in panic. Alright, you and I are about to watch Aruto teach a powerful vampire that thinking less and striking first is the key to absolute dominance. Aruto hands Lion a blade and the vampire immediately charges. After slicing through his foes, Lion turns back to Aruto, completely accepting him as his master and admitting his advice was spot on. That is when Aruto witnesses Lion's insane power firsthand. As the sword swings, Aruto questions his actual level and lifestyle, only for Lion to casually reveal his level is just 4. Aruto realizes this level already matches Magica's. From that moment on, his entire focus shifts to training the young vampire. Together, they grind, and Lion's level rises at a terrifying speed. At first, his movements are clumsy, but he quickly surpasses Aruto. They tear through dungeons faster than anyone thought possible. Every 10 floors, Magica joins them to crush the area boss. They blast through floors. After obliterating a massive, terrifying monster, a confident Lion promises his teacher that their record-breaking clear time will be legendary. Magica never expected they would conquer the 90th floor boss. 6 years later, Aruto stands over the beast's corpse. He thanks them for their support. His goal is the 100th floor, but time is running out. He declares that from here on, the game changes entirely. Hana's tragic death is only 1 year away. Soon after, Aruto packs up his gear and leaves the guild. The receptionist asks if Aruto is really leaving. He confirms his departure, thanking her for everything. Saddened, she asks where he is going, admitting she will miss him dearly. Aruto reveals he is heading to a special school in the capital. Right then, Magica and Lion come rushing down the stairs to stop him. Lion demands to know if his teacher is really leaving town. Standing close, Magica is completely shocked, having heard nothing about his sudden plan to go out on his own. Aruto faces his friends as they confront him for keeping them in the dark. He softly replies that he was indeed planning to say goodbye. Now here is where the stakes get incredibly high. With Hana's death just 1 year away, Aruto knows a deadly battle with Gamagan is coming and he cannot drag anyone else into this mess. Watching Aruto, Wyan admits he must have his reasons. But Magica steps up, declaring she is going too, since she still has not repaid him for saving her 6 years ago. She warns Aruto that he is not escaping them now. One pulls Aruto into a tight hug, smiling as he declares that students always follow their master's path. Over the last 6 years, they have grown incredibly strong. Magica promises that if anything goes wrong, they will protect Aruto. Stunned at first, Aruto breaks into a laugh, realizing he can't convince them otherwise. Accepting his fate, they all hop into the carriage and hit the road. Deep in the mountain pass, one sits yawning and staring blankly, complaining about how bored he is. It has been 4 days of riding, and he has no clue where they are going. Aruto tells Juan he will see for himself once they go down. If he is so bored, he can join Aruto in his mana concentration training. Magica watches from the side, smiling as she declines. She jokes that only Aruto has the absurd ability to get stronger while literally sitting completely still. She asks what their move is once they reach Euphonia. Aruto reveals his plan to enroll in the Royal Courts Academy, the most elite and exclusive school in the country. Shocked by this, one asks if he is actually serious about going back to school and why. Aruto, however, stays dead silent. Suddenly, the carriage violently jolts, nearly throwing one out as he yells. Aruto and Mika look up in surprise as the driver calls out that their wheel is stuck. The driver tries to free it, warning they might be stranded. Magica looks at Aruto for a plan and he just sighs, burying his face in his hands. Standing up, he looks at Magica and sighs that they have no choice but to walk. Wyan suddenly grins, telling Aruto to relax and leave it to him. The driver doubts if they can lift the wheel, but Wyan just unbuckles his gear with a grin. He tells the driver to unhitch the horse and head back alone, leaving the cart to him. You are not going to believe this, but Wyan literally lifts the entire ground holding the carriage and starts sprinting through the mountains. He thinks this crazy style makes him look like a total hero, plus, it gets them there faster. Slamming the cart down, one asks if he did a good job. Peeking inside, they see Mika and Aruto completely tangled up on top of each other. She complains that he should have warned them about that crazy force. An irritated Aruto drags one over, swearing to leave him behind next time. Nursing a massive bump on his head, one mutters that they still made great time. Looking back, they really did save a ton of time. Soon, the grand capital of Euphonia appears. Arudo tells Majika and one to grab the bags while he dashes ahead. Leaping out of the carriage, Arudo sprints toward the massive gates. His mind is completely consumed by Hana. She is so close now, his one and only. Memories of their past push him toward this royal academy. Even if fate decides they cannot be lovers in this life, he just needs to see her face. Meanwhile, Hana stands frozen in the middle of a busy street. Her companion asks what is wrong, and Hana whispers that her heart is suddenly pounding, like someone important is close by. She has never felt anything like this. The woman smiles, suggesting that maybe the person destiny has chosen for her is right around the corner. Intrigued by this mysterious destined person, Hana wonders who it could be. Her friend smiles, promising that the second they meet, she will know instantly. Hana wonders how she could possibly recognize a complete stranger, but fate works in mysterious ways. Right then, Arudo steps out of a nearby tunnel, almost touching her. Lion and Majika finally enter the gates. Lion looks around, commenting that this grand place is a city fit for a true hero like Arudo. Catching up, Arudo asks what he means. Lion explains that in his world, huge cities always have endless quests for heroes. Arudo is speechless, but notes that this capital actually houses 3 million people. Pointing toward the horizon, Arudo guides Lion's eyes to the massive royal palace and the vast administrative districts surrounding it. Aristocrats live all around them, and the giant cathedral of Fortimus stands directly opposite the palace. He warns them to stay low-key around so many powerful elites. Spotting Fortimus's statue in the cathedral, Lion shivers, saying he wants nothing to do with her. Once settled at the hotel, Arudo asks their plans while he prepares for his exams. Lion is shocked to hear there is an actual exam. Arudo explains it makes sense since this is the absolute top academy in the country. Luckily, the capital has its own guild and dungeon, even if they are smaller than Kintigris. Arudo notes they will easily find plenty of adventures. They part ways, leaving Arudo alone to prepare. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens in these entrance exams next. Alright, you and I are about to watch Arudo tackle the Royal Court School admissions. Get this, 10,000 applicants are competing for just 100 tiny spots. Finding Hana in this sea of people is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Deciding to scout the area, Arudo wanders inside. Suddenly, a familiar bench catches his eye, triggering a flood of memories from his past life. This was the spot he and Hana used to share. 70 years have slipped by, but Arudo knows that passing this exam is his ticket to finding her. Then, a sudden commotion cuts his thoughts short. He spots Lion desperately begging an admissions officer to look the other way, but she flatly refuses. Walking up to the chaotic scene, Arudo demands to know what Lion and Majika are even doing here. Lion points out Arudo to the proctor, while Majika quickly covers, claiming they only came to test their power and take the exam. But Lion immediately ruins her cover, blabbing that she is lying. Majika's actual plan was just to sneak Arudo into the academy. Annoyed, Majika decks Lion, telling him to shut up. From the dirt, Lion groans, asking why she had to hit him so hard. Standing tall, she snaps back that if she used her real strength, he would be completely flattened. Just then, an admissions officer interrupts, coldly asking Arudo for his entry fee. Arudo freezes, completely blindsided by the fee requirement. From the floor, Lion explains they are totally broke, which is why he was trying to negotiate in the first place. Arudo snaps, asking where all their saved money went. Majika glares at Lion, explaining that he blew their entire stash on overpriced gourmet food while sightseeing in the elite district. Before Arudo can finish chewing them out, an arrogant voice interrupts, complaining about how noisy the new recruits are. Suddenly, a violent blast of wind magic sweeps over them, leaving everyone completely disoriented. A fancy professor appears from the dust, sneering that this academy is a sacred place of noble tradition, not a playground for uncultured country bumpkins. Arudo instantly recognizes Professor Deutsch. But Lion immediately gets defensive, shouting, "Who is this guy anyway? Talk about a hypocrite calling us uncivilized while blasting us with magic." Clenching his fist, Lion prepares to throw down. Arudo rushes to hold him back, urging him to chill. This guy is an academy professor, and starting a brawl right now will completely ruin their test results. Arudo grinds his teeth, remembering Deutsch's reputation. The man was always obsessed with his students' wealth and social class. The professor sneers at their cheap clothes. Here's the part you and I need to watch closely. He targets Arudo, asking if a level 1 trash can actually pass. Arudo stares back, stunned by the blatant disrespect. Deutsch scoffs, telling him to just pack up and go home. His chances of passing are absolutely zero, and he'd just be throwing away his registration fee. Eyeing Majika and Lion with disgust, Deutsch adds that his trashy friends don't stand a chance either. Arudo just smiles, mentally thanking the arrogant professor for giving him the perfect motivation. Slamming down a heavy pouch of coins to cover the fee, he declares he will let his exam results do the talking. He firmly believes that despite teachers like Deutsch, the school will ultimately judge them on raw merit. With that, he turns on his heel and walks away. Deutsch glares at the departing trio, disgusted by Arudo's sheer audacity. A pathetic level 1 kid actually thinks he can achieve something extraordinary. Fine, then Deutsch decides he wants to see exactly how badly this brat fails. The exam begins, split into 2 phases, a written test in the morning and a practical combat exam after lunch. The students first gather in the classroom to tackle the written exam. Arudo's task is a complex logistics problem, calculating departure times for cavalry moving at 10 kilometers, infantry at 4, and equipment at 2. So all 3 arrive 30 kilometers away at the exact same time. While breezing through his paper, Arudo glances over at Lion. The poor guy is visibly sweating, completely drowning in panic. Then he checks on Majika, who is writing smoothly, clearly thanks to her intense preparation. Arudo smiles, realizing he needs to focus on his own test too. Suddenly, Deutsch looms right in front of Arudo, sneering at a level 1 trying to pass. Let's pause for a second. This arrogant teacher is about to oversee the practical exam himself, meaning zero mercy. Tapping his cane on the floor, Deutsch announces the start of the practical. He points to a massive block, telling the students their task is simple: destroy this cube. He warns them they can use any magic or weapons they want, but it will not be easy. From the stands, our trio watches closely as the trial begins. One by one, students unleash their best attacks, but the cube does not have a single scratch. Deutsch sighs, writing in his notebook that this year is full of complete weaklings. Deutsch mutters to himself, confident that nobody can shatter his enhanced magic barrier. But then, Magica steps up to the plate, with Lion loudly cheering for her to show off her skills. She coldly tells him to shut up. Deutsch recognizes Magica as the troublesome beast girl from the front gates, realizing her name sounds strangely familiar. He scoffs, assuming she is just a beastman, relying on mindless physical strength. His reinforced magic is elite tier, and basic brute force will never be enough to break it. But Magica inspects the cube, instantly analyzing its structural weak points. With one perfectly placed strike, she cracks it, shattering the entire block to pieces. The entire arena erupts in wild cheers as everyone applauds her unbelievable feat. Meanwhile, Deutsch stands frozen, completely unable to process how she pulled that off. It was not just a fast punch. Examining the debris, he realizes she executed a flurry of strikes targeting the exact same spot with pixel-perfect precision. Suddenly, a terrifying realization hits him. She is Magica of the Terra Estate, a dangerous threat flagged by the Vatican. Wondering why a monster like her is here, he clears her to pass. Next up is Lion. Stepping up with absolute confidence, Lion announces he is next. Deutsch watches him, dismissing him as a complete meathead who could never be a dangerous threat. Lion summons a glowing sphere over the cube, warning everyone to brace themselves. In a flash, a massive explosion obliterates everything, forcing Deutsch to shield his face in absolute shock. Standing in the middle of a destroyed crater, Lion casually asks if that was good enough. Deutsch just stares, completely traumatized. In all his years, he has never seen such complete, brutal annihilation. Shaking with sheer rage, Deutsch snaps that he passes. Lion leans in, cheerfully expressing relief that the professor did not get blown to pieces by the shockwave. Paler than a ghost, Deutsch calls for the next student, looking like he desperately needs a soul-healing vacation. Instantly, the magic on the testing arena magically restores itself. Deutsch is left completely baffled. How on earth did these self-taught kids, including a literal Vatican danger, completely decimate his state-of-the-art testing grounds? This has never happened in school history. Deutsch rants to the faculty, presenting the unbelievable test scores. The admissions board is deeply worried, questioning if they should really let these monsters enroll. Another dean points out their level 4 capabilities, arguing that if they join the military, they will bring legendary glory and prestige to the academy. But Deutsch steps up, arguing that despite their behavioral issues, geniuses of this caliber don't knock on their door every day. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, things are about to get wild. Get ready, because you and I are about to watch how Deutsch finally convinces the stubborn professors to accept these brand new academy students. Looking over the roster, Deutsch spots a massive problem child, Arudo. He might have succeeded before, but as a low-class dropout, regulations say he must be rejected. Deutsch gets a terrible feeling. If Arudo actually passes this, the school's reputation is ruined forever. So, he casts Elo's specialized spell on a massive cube. Determined to fail Arudo at all costs, he places a heavily reinforced cube right on the center stage. He loudly announces that the exams are back on, silently swearing that no low-class student will ever pass. This cube is rigged with reinforcement magic and Alice absorption, meaning every single hit only makes it stronger. Deutsch is confident that even elite mages couldn't scratch it, so he orders the next trial to begin. But the student stepping up isn't Aruto, making the teacher curse under his breath. He fully expected Aruto to go next. There were 3 candidates before, but this random kid didn't even walk up with them. Doubtful this kid can even scratch the target, Deutsch tells him to start. As the student unleashes his attack, the teacher watches in disbelief, thinking, are all these rookies this bad? He has absolutely zero control over his mana. Why was I so worried about Aruto when this guy is clearly a complete disaster? Deutsch instantly declares a fail, but suddenly the cube begins to warp. Now watch this, because the entire cube erupts with a massive wave of crimson mana. Deutsch stumbles back in absolute shock, while the confused crowd stares down at the sudden chaos. While some whispers spread about how crazy that last attack actually was, things are getting dangerous. This red mana is completely out of control. Suddenly, Aruto leaps down from the stands, yelling for everyone to evacuate while he handles the mess. But as he approaches, a violent whirlwind forms and he realizes something deeper is happening. He spots Deutsch desperately struggling against the sheer pressure, knowing the teacher's barrier won't last much longer. If Aruto doesn't act fast, this entire arena is going to blow. Deutsch tries to help the student, but his own magic is totally bone dry. People are about to get seriously hurt. Stuck in the middle of the raging storm, Deutsch casts one last shield, but it immediately starts cracking. That's when Aruto steps up, using his unique powers to suppress the violent winds. Deutsch is completely speechless. Aruto walks over, casually asking if they're okay. The stunned teacher asks how he even did that, but Aruto just shrugs, saying he followed instructions. He tells Deutsch to just focus on raising shields and keeping everyone safe while he controls the blast. Deutsch snaps back, telling him not to talk trash since he can handle this perfectly fine. Aruto just stares at him. The teacher warns that the cube is highly unstable right now, and even the smallest vibration could trigger a massive explosion. Paying no mind, Aruto reaches his hand out toward the cube, focusing his energy to stop the reaction. Deutsch watches in pure shock, wondering if he really just neutralized the mana. Despite his own minor injuries, Aruto completely locks down the energy, calmly picking up the stabilized cube. He notes that it seems the Aloe spell was indeed cast on it. He points out that because this academy only takes highly elite mages, the staff might not know that this specific spell actually triggers on ultra-weak magic, making its overall structure incredibly fragile. Deutsch looks at him, demanding to know who he really is. He realizes that Aruto is indeed a self-taught, low-class kid from the lowest standard of living. But as you and I can see, even someone from the bottom can achieve greatness through hard work. Suddenly, the fully drained cube completely shatters to pieces. Deutsch reluctantly announces that Aruto has passed the exam. After some quick celebrations, the group heads over to a local tailor shop to try on their official school uniforms. The shopkeeper congratulates them, and once they change, the entire group looks incredibly sharp. Adjusting his coat, Lion admits he has never worn clothes this fancy in his entire life. Aruto compliments Lion, telling him the outfit looks great on him. When Lion just stands there, Aruto raises an eyebrow, making Lion awkwardly turn and ask what he meant. Just then, Magica walks out, asking if they have anything more comfortable. She complains that the uniform's skirt restricts her movement too much, and her legs are absolutely freezing. The guys immediately point out how amazing she looks, like a genuine, high-class noble. But Lion can't help but tease her, joking that even a regular stump looks good in fancy gear. Magica quickly smacks him over the head, snapping that nobody gave him permission to open his mouth. Smiling, they go back to finalizing their uniform selections. The shopkeeper asks if all the measurements feel right, and they agree everything fits perfectly. Handing them a receipt, he explains the tailoring will take 2 weeks and cost 10 gold coins per person. Hearing the price, the group completely freezes up, totally shocked by the massive bill. Noticing their sudden panic, Aruto turns around to ask what is wrong. Lion explains that 10 gold coins could easily feed a person for 6 months, and this is just for clothes. Aruto realizes his friends are completely broke and offers to cover the bill, since they have no choice. Magica immediately objects, saying he's already paying for their entire academy exam fee. They ask the shopkeeper if they can pay once the uniforms are delivered, and he happily agrees to the arrangement. With that sorted, they grab Aruto and drag him straight to the local adventurer guild to find some high-paying jobs. A totally confused Aruto asks why he's being dragged along too. Lion grins, pointing out that, as their mentor, Aruto can't just abandon his students. Arriving at the guild, they immediately start scanning the quest board. They find typical low-tier jobs like hunting goblins for 12 copper or beating sewer rats for 20 silver. Lion sighs, noting that these cheap quests won't get them 10 gold in 2 weeks, even if they do every single job on the way to the capital. Suddenly, Lion spots a massive quest offering a whopping 30 gold reward. Aruto glances over, immediately suspicious of such a massive payout for a single task. Reading the flyer, Lion reveals they need to hunt down a fire dragon in the northern mountains. Aruto instantly calls it impossible. The group demands to know why. Aruto explains that dragons are legendary monsters, survivors of a devastating war of the gods from 150 years ago. Just a single one appearing can easily wipe out an entire nation. Hearing about this scale of catastrophe, Magica wonders if such monsters actually exist, and Aruto confirms they are rare but very real. In his past life, he actually fought one himself. But even at level 99, his only viable option was to run for his life. Lion asks if it is really that dangerous, pointing out that 30 gold coins is a joke of a payout. Sure, it is a lot of money, but it is nothing compared to the risk. As a former guild employee, he thinks 1,000 gold is a much fairer price. Aruto agrees completely, while Magica asks if this paper is just fake news. And trust me, you and I are about to find out how real this is, because Lion explains that the guild's strict rules would have already taken down any fake quests. Alright, you and I are about to watch our main character. Aruto sees his chance to rewrite history. Sensing something hidden in this request, he eagerly convinces the group to accept it. As he leaves, Lion promises to handle the arrangements. Aruto warns everyone that finding a dragon is extremely rare, so they must prepare properly. Without their knowledge, a shady figure spies on their talk. A week later, the party is back to slaying monsters, with Magica venting her frustration from atop a giant boar. They are only finding weak monsters no matter how deep they search. Magica thinks they were tricked, but Lion scans the area and disagrees. Approaching the slain beast, Aruto suggests setting up camp before it gets too dark. Soon, the crew is sharing a hot meal by the fire. Lion loves the food, saying these shared moments are the absolute best. Inspecting some slime, Aruto notes that selling their loot and magic stones will easily cover the cost of their new school uniforms. Too bad they missed the dragon, but it is time to head back to Euphonia tomorrow. While eating, Magica admits she will really miss adventuring like this. Aruto agrees that he will miss it too. But tonight, he has special gifts for his companions, leaving them curious about what he made. Aruto hands out custom pendants he forged using his peak blacksmithing skills. As Magica holds hers, she feels a gentle yet incredibly powerful magic radiating within. Aruto confesses he once believed he would live a solitary life. Sitting by this warm fire with true friends was something he never expected. So, these pendants are his heartfelt way of saying thank you. With warm smiles, the group finally heads off to sleep. Suddenly, Aruto snaps awake from suffocating heat. The rest of the crew wakes up panicking, only to step outside and find the entire forest completely engulfed in wild flames. Wait, is that a dragon? Suddenly, a massive beast lets out an ear-piercing roar. Pay attention, because yes, the guild's quest was real after all. The dragon is covered in fire, screaming danger. As Lion stupidly asks about the magical loot, his friends drag him away, shouting to run faster. A massive blast of fire vaporizes the exact spot Lion stood. They barely escape, but Lion's legs are left smoking from the insane heat. Cornered, a massive ring of fire traps them on all sides. Magica realizes there is nowhere to run, meaning they must slay this beast to survive. Aruto remembers that the ancient dragons he fought in his past life could speak like humans. This silent, smaller beast is totally different, meaning he might be facing an even more dangerous, primal enemy. Aruto steals his resolve. He cannot freeze up here if he wants to protect Hana. Unleashing a swift water strike, he targets the fire dragon's obvious elemental weakness. Instantly, the beast summons a magical shield. Aruto is stunned. There is no way Magica can break through that defense. Magica leaps in anyway, screaming for backup. Lion joins the fray as they strike the monster, but its insane physical defense is like solid steel. Realizing basic attacks will not make a dent, Aruto uses his past knowledge to locate the beast's weak spot, telling Magica to draw its attention. Hoping to deliver a fatal strike, Aruto watches Magica try to distract the beast, but her attacks barely register. Lion panics as the dragon chases him down, despite him not even landing a hit. Aruto realizes Lion's taunt skills might be their only salvation right now. I know what you are thinking. Aruto must have a killer strategy here, right? Well, he literally orders Lion to act as dragon bait. Lion is completely baffled. Even with his immortal body, who in their right mind would willingly take a direct hit from a dragon. Aruto promises to weaken the blow with magic, begging Lion to trust him. With zero options left, Lion reluctantly agrees to the crazy plan. What a ruthless mentor! Lion grumbles while blocking the dragon head-on. Aruto casts defensive magic to support him, then screams for Magica to strike. Magica spots a gap in its underbelly scales. She strikes the weak point directly, making the dragon roar in agony. She must finish this now. She fires a freezing star. But as she prepares another spell, the dragon's massive tail whips her, sending her crashing down, motionless. Horrified, Aruto and Lion fear the worst. But as Magica hits the dirt, her protective neck pendant glows, triggering a spell designed to prevent instant death. As she falls, she feels a warm power guiding her safely. This overpowered gear absorbs the fatal impact, barely keeping her alive. Struggling to stand, Magica sees a massive foot coming down. The boys scream her name and rush in. Boom, the stomp lands. But she is gone. The dragon looks around, totally baffled. Aruto pulled her out just in time. Helping support her, Lion admits he never knew magic could be used like that. Aruto explains it is the ultimate trick for emergency escapes. Lion asks if she is okay, and she nods, still recovering. Lion asks about her recovery medicine, but Aruto notes it was burned inside their tent. Suddenly, their little slime companion holds something up. Aruto is shocked. The little guy actually saved the potion. Lion laughs, praising the pet as they quickly give Magica the healing medicine. Springing back up, she apologizes for slipping up. Without Aruto's protective charm, she would be history. But now, she is ready to unleash her true power. The guys tell her to hold on, promising to handle the beast while she stays safely hidden. But Magica refuses to sit out. Lion alone cannot protect Aruto, and they need her magic to finish this dragon off once and for all. Aruto gets her point. They quickly draft a team strategy while the furious dragon stalks the smoking forest, hunting for them. Stepping right into the open, Lion insults the dragon, calling it a complete idiot to get its attention. It takes the bait instantly. He only needs to stall the monster for 1 minute while Aruto preps a trap. Smashing a tree down, he admits he is not as fast as Magica. But when it comes to raw tanking, he is unmatched. The dragon incinerates the tree, Lion throws, forcing Lion to scream at Aruto to hurry up. Aruto shouts that he is almost ready, so Lion chucks a massive boulder to buy a few more seconds. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this epic showdown finally ends next time. Alright, you and I are jumping right into the action as Magica screams to Lion, questioning if the beast is speeding up. Meanwhile, Aruto warns the team that his spell will only bind the dragon for 10 seconds. If they miss this window, they are dead. As Lion gets ready to throw Magica, he asks if she is prepared, and she shoots back, "Are you seriously asking me that?" With a massive throw, Lion launches Magica straight into the sky, yelling for her to go all out. She unleashes her Twinkling Star and Fist of Dreams combo, but the dragon just fires back with a massive blast of flame. Falling back down, Magica apologizes, realizing the dragon fell right into their trap. The stupid beast did exactly what they wanted. By using her magic as bait, they tricked it into looking up. Now its weak spot is wide open, and it is entirely up to Lion to land the finishing blow, a strike they all know he can pull off. Holding the sword of courage high, Lion charges forward and slices the dragon's head clean off. The beast crashes down, and the entire squad screams in victory, celebrating their epic team play. Lion turns to Aruto, eagerly asking if he is finally a true dragon slayer. Aruto smiles and praises his incredible finishing blow. Overjoyed, Lion cheers that the title sounds incredibly brave, but Magica still cannot believe Aruto actually trusted this idiot to deliver the final blow. Lion is totally offended, asking if she is trying to start a fight, but Magica surprisingly admits he did a great job this time, adding that she will definitely rely on him the next time they face trouble. Lion stares at her, wondering if she is genuinely praising him or just losing her mind. Aruto watches them silently, but suddenly, a wave of intense dizziness hits the entire group out of nowhere. Holding her head, Magica wonders if they are dizzy from leveling up. Aruto checks his system and gasps he just jumped 8 whole levels, reaching level 78. Now pay attention here, because this jump is insane. He could barely gain 1 level lately after killing endless demons. Overjoyed, Aruto hugs his confused friends tightly. He warns them that if they pass out in the open, they will wake up inside a monster's stomach. He summons a defensive stone wall before they collapse, leaving Rue in charge of their safety. Rue, the loyal slime, gladly obeys his master under the beautiful moonlight. The party completely blacks out, but when they wake up the next morning, they are totally stunned by what they see. A blazing heat wraps around them as a bright red light glows in front of their eyes. Blink and look closely. Aruto wakes up to find a massive dragon magic stone sitting right there. Aruto asks Ru if he actually dragged this heavy thing all the way to their camp. A tired Ru nods, and Aruto praises the little guy for securing the treasure while keeping watch all night. He hugs Ru, making the little spirit incredibly happy. Magica admits she has never seen a magic stone shine so brightly, while Lion stares at it, completely mesmerized. Is this really a legendary dragon stone? Staring at its glowing surface, they are amazed by its pure beauty. Just showing this to the guild should be enough proof they slayed the beast. Looking at the giant corpse behind them, Aruto knows this stone is only the beginning. He draws his sword and immediately starts carving into the dragon's massive leg. A confused Lion asks what on earth he is doing. Aruto replies that they cannot just leave all these legendary dragon parts behind. Its scales can be woven into armor that deflects steel swords, and its claws can forge blades sharp enough to slice iron. Even its hide makes a cloak that blocks magic. Then, he points to a glowing spot. Aruto pulls out a rare treasure, the dragon's eyeball, worth a fortune on the market. The team watches in horror as Aruto holds up the massive eyeball. Then, with a wild grin, he reveals the ultimate prize, the dragon's heart, causing Lion to pass out cold. Magica grabs Aruto by his collar while trying to wake up Lion. Annoyed, she asks what they are even supposed to do with the dragon's heart. Aruto explains that after aging for 3 years, it becomes a legendary resurrection potion. Magica has heard of this mythic medicine, but never knew its secret ingredient. Lion wakes up to clarify that it only works on humans. But let's pause and look at this haul. Aruto calculates it is more than enough to buy their expensive uniforms. Aruto warns Magica not to go on a shopping spree, and she agrees. Aruto wonders how they will carry all these valuable materials back. Lion, fully awake now, remarks how useful a video game-style inventory skill would be, completely shocking Aruto with the idea. Lion tries to explain the concept of pocket dimensions to Aruto, asking if he possesses some cheat skill. He demands to know what is going on here. There is no way he has an infinite inventory. Aruto sighs, pointing out that since his bag is ruined, they must carry what they can and come back for the rest later. Just then, the slime hops over. Aruto asks what is wrong, only for Ru to spit out his lost bag. Aruto instantly realizes the slime can store things inside its body. Aruto wonders if Ru can do the same with the massive dragon stone. Though it seems impossible, he asks the slime if it can actually swallow such a giant object. Ru simply opens wide and sucks in the entire pile of dragon parts, leaving everyone speechless. Lion grabs the slime, crying out that inventory skills are not real. Aruto weeps, realizing all his painful carving work was completely pointless. As his friends try to comfort him, a mysterious figure watches them silently from the shadows. The girl marvels at how just 3 rookies, especially that black-haired boy, took down a dragon. Smiling, she looks forward to seeing what other surprises they will bring. Back at the guild, Aruto proudly announces they successfully completed the dragon hunt. Lion steps up, inviting the guild staff to inspect their massive haul of legendary materials. The evaluator scoffs, saying anyone could buy these rare parts at a high-end auction if they had the coin. The staff flatly refuses to buy the parts or pay out the reward, demanding they take their trash home. An angry Lion shouts back that they did not buy these. Watching from behind, Aruto realizes their proof is not enough. He quietly reflects on destiny and how insanely hard it is for ordinary people to change their preordained paths. He considers these doubts a natural side effect of defying fate, almost like the mysterious magic that rules this world. Aruto sighs and tells Lion they have to back down. A confused Lion cannot believe they are giving up, but the stubborn guild staff refuse to budge. Aruto reminds him their only goal is to buy uniforms. They will just find another merchant to buy the parts, and Lion reluctantly agrees is their best option. Still, he hates accepting defeat. Suddenly, a sharp voice rings out, telling them to keep the noise down. Aruto looks up, his eyes widening in complete shock at the newcomer. The mysterious girl remarks on the guild's cheap decorations, teasing them as she walks in. Confused by her sudden arrival, the group demands to know who she is. Introducing herself as Citri Justice, the future Duchess, she makes a grand entrance. And trust me, you and I are definitely going to see some wild changes soon. Let's dive into this wild story where a mysterious girl immediately roasts our heroes, asking what kind of barbarian adventurers they're supposed to be. Lion struggles to keep his cool, angrily demanding to know what she meant. But Aruto steps in, telling him to calm down, while quietly repeating her name in his head. He recognizes her as a high official from the Council of True and False, one of Euphonia's 12 legendary generals. What on earth was she doing here? Inspecting the items brought to the appraisers, the girl picks one up, identifying it as fresh spinal fluid. This proves the materials were harvested right after the dragon died, meaning they weren't resold. She notes, they even went out of their way to buy these materials. Then, she approaches Aruto, leaning in close, completely shocked that such a young kid could actually be a dragon slayer. She whispers that she can't wait to see what else he has planned for the future, leaving a sweating Aruto speechless. Leaving the guild, an ecstatic lion clutches 150 gold coins, shouting he's never seen so much cash, but Majika warns him they cannot spend it. Walking behind them, Aruto wonders why Citri singled him out instead of his friends. Did she somehow figure out his secret? He had spent over 10 years carefully planning Hana's rescue, and his current base was crucial for his entire operation. Even if he had known, changing the plan now would just be a weak bluff, so he resolves to keep everything exactly as it is. All he can do is press forward with absolute confidence that things will work out. Meanwhile, over in the training courtyard, Citri easily dominates her opponent in a fierce sparring match. Now watch closely as a servant asks her to stop, noticing she is unusually excited, and asks if something happened in the city. She smiles, replying she finally found her little man, proving God's prophecy right. Sending out that dragon hunt request was worth it, since the kingdom wants them dead anyway. While killing a dragon alone should be impossible, any person who breaks the fate decreed by God is a major threat. A person capable of such a feat is destined to lead the world straight into absolute ruin and disaster. She wasn't entirely certain, but she couldn't ignore him either, remembering the intense spark of raw battle spirit she saw in the boy's eyes. Citri knew that if he wasn't walking a righteous path, he would never possess such a pure, burning spirit. Deflecting another attack, she tells Lord Formus to watch closely because she's going to expose Aruto. Meanwhile, under the bright sun, our heroes arrive at school for their class assignments. Lion frantically searches the board and finds his name, seeing he got placed in Class C. Looking at the scores next to the names, he wonders why placement isn't based on merit anymore. If scores mattered, why was he stuck in a low class? Majika jokes that Aruto's test scores must have been a total disaster. When Aruto asks where she got placed, Majika proudly reveals she made it into Class A on a full scholarship. Lion is stunned, while Aruto genuinely congratulates her. Majika asks if he made it into Class A too, but Aruto admits he got dropped into Class D, completely shocking his friends. Lion collapses to the ground, crying that Aruto studied so hard only to end up below him, jokingly asking if he bubbled in the wrong answers. Majika smacks him for being an idiot, but Aruto explains the harsh truth. Coming from a poor peasant family, the system would never let him go higher than Class D, no matter his test scores. Besides, Aruto doesn't care about school rankings anyway. He's got bigger goals, so everything is perfectly fine for now. His friends are still baffled, but they've arrived at the building and must say their goodbyes as they head to their separate classrooms. Aruto hopes his friends adjust well, then heads to his own classroom where the trouble begins. He remembers that opening this door triggers a classic water trap designed to humiliate him. You and I both know this wasn't an accident, but the kid claims he was just practicing water magic, fake apologizing while calling Aruto nothing but peasant trash. Aruto remembers how the elite students always look down on the lower classes, instantly recognizing this petty bullying. Aruto calmly wishes him luck with his practice. Noticing the timeline is matching his memories. The other classmates stare in shock, wondering how he stayed completely dry. Another student steps up, mocking his friend's bad control, and launches his own magic attack at Aruto. But Aruto casually counters the spell, remaining completely untouched by the water. The attacker is completely stunned, unable to comprehend how his spell was blocked. Sitting down, Aruto quietly notes that in his past life, this level of defense was top-tier magic. Confused by his words, the bullies assume Aruto must be wearing stolen high-grade magic armor, deciding they need to take it back from him immediately. Charging up a dangerous fire spell, the bully claims it's fine since the armor should protect him. Watching them, Aruto realizes they are just using the thief excuse to attack. He wonders if he was too reckless showing off magic, but shrugs it off since their weak spells pose absolutely no threat to him. Just then, someone else unleashes a wild fireball right as a girl steps inside. Instantly, Aruto leaps into action, moving with blinding speed to block the incoming attack. He firmly warns the attacker that using offensive magic in a crowded classroom is incredibly dangerous, telling him to be much more careful next time. The stunned attacker stands there, utterly baffled by who just stopped his spell, while the entering girl asks what is going on. Too nervous to even turn around, Aruto realizes this is the long-awaited moment. Facing her, he sees Hana standing right in front of him. He walks over, calmly explaining they were just practicing magic to put her mind at ease. Deep down, tears well up as he remembers the tragedy ahead. He cannot let himself get close to Hana again. With only 5 years left to live, restarting their romance would only force her to suffer when he dies. It is better to remain total strangers to spare her from that agony. Hana's tragic death is only 4 months away. Leaving the room, Aruto reassures himself and silently vows to protect her no matter what. Seeing Aruto leaves Hana completely stunned. In truth, for someone from the Colonel family, even attending this school is a miracle. The Colonels are a prestigious noble family in Euphonia, and they had massive expectations for her. They even hired the world's best mentor. Yet she struggled with everything. The mentor bluntly tells her parents he has never met anyone so completely devoid of talent, while Hana listens secretly from behind the door. He explains that talent is crucial for growth, but her natural power is at a pathetic level 4, making solid development basically impossible. And that's where we leave it, with a brutal realization that she has zero talent. All right, you and I are diving into a story where 10 years have passed. Just like her mentor predicted, Hana kept failing. No matter how hard she tried, she never leveled up. Everyone abandoned her, even her own father. But Hana kept fighting, using some backroom politics to secure a spot at this academy. Of course, the school had to hide her weakness. They couldn't let her drag down the prestigious family name of her colonel father. She realized she had to play it safe, barely breathing to avoid being noticed, keeping her head low, and never saying a word to make herself stand out. If she was completely invisible, nobody would mock her. She could just stay in her own bubble. But the moment she stepped into her new classroom, everything in her life shifted completely. She suddenly remembered her mother talking about her future husband. Her mom admitted she had never met him, but promised her that when destiny finally brought them together, she would recognize him instantly. And the second she saw Aruto, she knew. He was the one. Right then, Aruto was practicing his swordplay when the instructor ordered everyone to swing as if they were actually fighting demons. The teacher barked, telling them that half-hearted swings were useless in martial arts. He threatened to kick out anyone who treated this lesson like a joke. He sounded harsh, but he was mostly just testing them. As Aruto held up a simple dagger, the teacher suddenly lunged at him. Aruto dodged, asking why he was attacking out of nowhere. But the teacher demanded Aruto hand over his weapon, claiming he was not ready for it. Little did he know, Aruto's blade was actually a dragon fang dagger, a legendary weapon made from dragon teeth. When the instructor demanded to know where he got it, Aruto silently remembered slaying a dragon and forging it himself, but saying that out loud, everyone would just call him crazy. The teacher scoffed, saying relying on a good weapon would block his growth. He declared he was confiscating the dagger until Aruto actually leveled up his skills, ordering him to hand it over. The other students whispered that since Levante was a high-tier adventurer, Aruto was finished. But Aruto just stood there, waiting for the teacher's next move. Levante struck again, mocking Aruto's slow reactions and demanding the dagger. But Aruto kept slipping away, refusing to back down. In that moment, he realized this teacher was indeed the real deal. Frustrated, Levante wondered how a low-class commoner was managing to avoid his strikes. He figured Aruto was probably just riding on a wave of pure luck. Now pay attention here, because this is where the game turns into a real challenge. The teacher proposes a wild bet: dodge him until class ends or lose the blade. Aruto couldn't understand why this instructor was so obsessed with his blade. Warming up, Levante made it clear that running away meant automatic defeat, showing zero mercy to a mere commoner. And so, the game began. With a loud shout, Levante lunged forward, but Aruto nimbly stepped aside. Even with his massive build, the teacher was shockingly fast. But to Aruto, this was nothing compared to facing Majika. Meanwhile, Levante was losing his mind, unable to understand how this kid kept dodging every single attack. Suddenly, Levante unleashed wind magic, catching Aruto completely off guard. The teacher thought he had him trapped, but his strike slammed into an empty wall. Aruto had vanished entirely. Appearing right behind Levante, Aruto realized how close that was. This guy wasn't holding back at all, firing off lethal magic spells. The rest of the class cheered for the instructor, wanting him to finish this. But Hana stayed quiet, her eyes locked onto Aruto, waiting to see his next move. Dodging yet another fierce barrage, Aruto realized Levante wouldn't stop. Feeling cornered, he had no choice but to activate his distance reduction spell. In a flash of light, he teleported right onto a nearby tree branch. He had only recently mastered this spell, allowing him to flash across short distances instantly. Levante was getting seriously pissed off. How was this kid so damn hard to hit? If this kept up, he'd be humiliated. Meanwhile, Aruto relaxed up on the branch. The teacher smirked, asking if he really thought he got away, pointing to Aruto's torn shirt. Aruto was stunned. Was the teacher really that fast, without him even realizing it? Looking closer, Aruto realized something crucial. Levante never actually touched him. It was just the sharp wind currents from his magic that ripped the fabric of his shirt. Levante knew Aruto wouldn't lie about this, but suddenly, one of the class bullies lied, claiming they saw the teacher touch him. Another quickly agreed. You and I both know those kids are totally lying. There is no way they could see anything at that speed. Aruto realizes he is in a really tight spot. Levante reached out, demanding the Dragon Fang dagger as they agreed. But then, someone shouted for everyone to wait, arguing the teacher never touched him. It was Magica. Aruto hopped down, asking what she was doing here. She said she was just passing by, before pointing her finger right at Levante and questioning his status. Levante froze, realizing how dangerous this girl actually was. Magica was a state-level threat. Fearing the absolute chaos she could bring, the teacher instantly backed down. He played it cool, acknowledging her sharp vision before turning back to Aruto. He muttered that if Aruto lost, it would cause too many issues with Magica watching. Instead, Levante decided to restart the game, unleashing a devastating wind cutter to prove his A-rank status. He explained this advanced technique turned his hands into lethal wind weapons, daring Aruto to try and dodge. The next second, Levante lunged forward with full force. This magic cast sharp air blades in all directions. Levante smugly thought of Aruto as just another student. If he died here, everyone would just assume it was an accident. In the middle of training, he aimed his lethal attack to slice Aruto. Aruto focused, feeling the terrifying sharpness of the oncoming wind blades. He resolved to dodge every single blade, smoothly slipping past the wind cutter. Levante was absolutely stunned, unable to believe a low-level weakling could pull this off. Could someone really defy the limits of their level like this? No, it had to be a total fluke. Levante tried to convince himself he was just off today. But still filled with doubt, Levante drew his actual sword. As an elite academy teacher, he simply could not afford to lose to a student. Aruto gasped as Levante drew a real blade, realizing things were getting dangerously out of hand. If he could just survive until the bell, he would win. But suddenly, the jealous students intervened, claiming Aruto was using cheap tricks. Demanding he fight like a man, they grabbed Aruto's legs to completely pin him down. They laughed, holding him tight so Levante could land a hit. Completely trapped, Aruto watched the teacher approach. Only Hana realized the dark truth. She panicked, wondering if the teacher was actually going to murder him. Levante sneered, ready to put this low-rank kid in his grave once and for all. Levante's sword came crashing down to end him. With only seconds left in the class, Aruto quickly activated his hacking skill. With his weapon gone, Aruto teleports away, dragging the cheating students with him. And that is where we leave it, trust me. You won't want to miss what comes next. Next, Aruto activates his grave and argalization spells, completely crushing the teacher. Declaring the man totally unfit and blinded by greed, Aruto casually drops a magic ball right next to him. As the final seconds tick away, the clock signals the end of the class. Aruto wins. The students holding onto his leg can only stare in absolute shock at their defeated teacher. Aruto announces that the lesson is officially finished and asks them to let go. Stunned, the students slowly release their grip on his feet. After class, the students gossip endlessly about teacher Levante, praising his incredible skills and whining that they could never copy his moves. They wonder if they will ever reach his level. Aruto walks quietly behind the group. Realizing that nobody even remembers him, he ponders the strange magic of this world. Suddenly, Mika runs up and hits him. Aruto is confused as Mika calls him careless, scolding him for letting a backstab throw him off. She demands he join her after-school training as punishment, making a depressed Aruto mention his prior blacksmithing plans. He insists he did not lose his dagger and tells Mika to drop it, but she refuses. Meanwhile, Hana stands quietly in the background, watching them closely. Now pay attention to Hana, who starts training alone under the sunset. She is totally consumed by thoughts of Aruto. Why does nobody praise him when he clearly outmatched the teacher? No one else noticed, but Aruto was fighting with his eyes closed. She cannot understand how he pulls off such feats with a level 1 life status. Being a level 4 herself, Hana feels she could never replicate his moves, blaming her lack of talent. She shakes her head to dismiss the self-doubt, knowing raw effort cannot easily replace genius. Aruto must have trained like a demon. Gripping her sword, she resolves to make something of herself through sheer hard work, but immediately drops the blade, wincing in sudden pain. Her hands are bruised and tears well in her eyes, but she vows to grow stronger for her own sake. Just then, Aruto enters the training hall and runs right into her. He quickly apologizes, explaining he did not see any signs and assumed the room was empty. Hana stops him, asking if they can sit down and talk for a bit. Aruto pretends he did not hear her at first, but as she asks again, he just stares silently toward the exit. Sitting on the floor, Hana introduces herself as Hana Colonel. She praises his amazing skills, noting that no normal student could dodge Levante like that, wondering how he got so strong. Standing by the door, Aruto struggles with his feelings, knowing he only has 5 years left. Getting close to her now will only bring her pain later, so he decides to just watch over her from afar. Keeping his back turned, Aruto claims his strength is just the result of intense training. Out of nowhere, Hana grabs his hand, leaving both of them completely flustered. You and I can see how embarrassed she is as she pulls her hand back, apologizing for being so impulsive. Aruto just smiles, realizing she is exactly the girl he remembers. Hana snaps him out of his thoughts, asking him to listen. She hesitantly asks if they can train together, admitting that, despite her relentless effort, she has made zero progress. Even with elite instructors, she constantly lags behind the others. Turning to Aruto, she confesses her strong belief that if he trains her, she will finally succeed, before quickly apologizing for being so blunt. Aruto listens quietly as she frets about making him uncomfortable, but seeing her hands covered in raw blisters and wounds, his heart completely aches for her. This precious chance to connect with her is slipping away, leaving him utterly torn about what to do next. Ultimately, he cannot reject the heartfelt plea of someone so hardworking and precious to him from his past life. Aruto promises that if she is serious, he will give her all his support. A beaming Hana reaches out, thanking him as they seal the deal with a handshake. She vows to give it her all, and Aruto smiles, encouraging her that they will do great. Out of nowhere, voices announce they overheard the whole thing. A startled Hana looks up to find Lion standing there, shouting that friends of friends are automatic buddies, while a girl peeks out. He proudly declares this is called Operation 100 Friends. Reaching out to Hana with a bright smile, he introduces himself as Lion and asks if they can be on a first-name basis. A flustered Hana quickly agrees. Witnessing this, Aruto complains, asking what friends he is talking about since they are not even friends. When Lion gets dramatically offended, Aruto has to placate him. Meanwhile, Mika introduces herself to Hana using her grand noble name, telling her she can just call her Mika. The two girls warmly shake hands. Hearing her full name, Hana asks if she belongs to royalty. Mika admits she comes from a fallen royal family, explaining that her lineage has unfortunately lost its power and influence over time. Lion and Aruto listen closely, but Lion suddenly erupts, demanding to know why she kept her royal heritage a secret from him. Mika casually replies that it is because she never brought it up. Lion goes off, complaining that if she possesses elite royal blood, then his own rare heroic talents look completely ordinary. He stares at Mika, wondering how such a tiny, quiet girl could carry royal blood. Right on cue, the two of them start bickering like cats and dogs. As Aruto and Hana watch from the sidelines, she asks if they should step in. Aruto tells her not to worry, reassuring her that Lion is surprisingly tough and will survive. Lion once could not beat a single demon, but now he can stand toe-to-toe with Mika. Looking at Hana, Aruto knows she will definitely become incredibly strong too. A few days later, the crew heads to the forest to train, and that is where we leave them, working hard as a team. Trust me, you will want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are diving back in as Aruto asks Hana if she is alright. She says yes. But when Magica asks about her stats, things get awkward. Hana admits she is only level 4, with absolutely zero talent. That confession leaves Magica and Lion completely stunned. No talent at all? How is that even possible? As Lion bursts into dramatic tears, a guilt-ridden Hana can only apologize. Aruto snaps at Lion to watch his mouth, but Lion shocks everyone by saying it is actually great. He explains that while raw talent helps, it certainly does not define a person's entire future. Skills do not lock you into one path, and lacking a gift just means you get to carve out your own journey. Is that not wonderful? That hits Aruto like a lightning bolt. Lion is actually right. Hana is completely blown away by this perspective, while Aruto cannot believe such a brilliant thought came from an idiot like Lion. Magica bluntly admits she always thought Lion was brainless. Under their judging glares, Lion whines about the lack of respect. Soon, they arrive at a nearby lake, the perfect training ground. Curious, Hana suggests they should practice hitting some trees first, but Aruto shakes his head. This is not some safe drill, they are doing this under real battle conditions. Hana has to fight real monsters now. The poor girl is absolutely terrified, claiming there is no way she can suddenly take a life. She desperately reminds Aruto that she is only level 1. Did he forget her stats? The three of them stare back silently. As she insists she cannot fight without experience, Aruto reaches into his bag to pull out a secret weapon. Do not worry, he reassures her, I will keep you safe. Suddenly, a pack of angry goblins emerges. Even Lion complains that Aruto is being way too harsh on the girl. Magica agrees, muttering that he did not have to attract an entire horde. But Aruto just smiles. He gathers them close, whispering a clever plan that they immediately get behind. This plan is worthy of a master, Lion boasts. Now pay attention here, both fighters are pumped up, but as Aruto hands Hana a sword, she admits she is not ready yet. Ready or not, Aruto trusts his squad completely, and they charge into the chaos. Magica wastes no time, gracefully dodging the incoming goblin attacks. She leaps into the air, realizing that fighting these weaklings one by one is a total drag. Instead, she unleashes a massive area spell that easily wipes them out. That is her classic move. Meanwhile, Aruto activates a glowing stone and joins the battle, leaving Hana completely awestruck by her companion's sheer power. Suddenly, a rogue goblin leaps out from the bushes. Caught off guard, Hana freezes, but Aruto dashes in like a flash to shield her. After easily slicing the beast down, he asks if she is all right. She nods, unharmed. Aruto knows the perfect moment has arrived. Right on cue, Lion gets absolutely swarmed by goblins, screaming dramatically about letting his guard down and being doomed. Seeing Lion buried under a massive green pile of monsters, Hana panics. She screams to Aruto that their friend is in serious danger. Warding off a goblin, Aruto casually claims he is too busy and tells Hana to save him instead. She panics, but Aruto coolly assures her she can do it. The monsters are totally focused on Lion, leaving their backs wide open. It is the perfect opening, but Hana is frozen by doubt while Aruto watches his master plan unfold. Aruto's genius plan relies entirely on Lion's tanking abilities. With his high defense and insane durability, Lion makes the ultimate bait, keeping the monsters occupied forever. With Lion acting as the perfect shield, Hana has a clear shot. Meanwhile, Magica and Aruto can easily sweep up the rest of the horde. But here is the real question for us. Does Hana have the courage to slay these beasts? Shaking with fear, she tightly grips her sword. Summoning her training, she strikes a goblin from behind, leaving a scratch as tears fill her eyes. Magica notes the physical hit is weak, but the mental hurdle she just crossed is massive. Aruto watches as Hana trembles, utterly consumed by guilt. She blames herself for being so weak and helpless while her comrade gets torn apart right in front of her. But Aruto's voice cuts through her panic, full of absolute belief in her. Gripping her hilt, something finally snaps inside her. She is done being weak. She wants to get stronger. With Aruto standing right by her side, she finally finds the burning courage she needs to fight. Rejecting her self-pity, Hana charges ahead, swinging her sword with pure determination. She presses forward, completely focused. A goblin sneaks an arrow toward her back, but Magica swiftly shoots it right out of the air. Magica snaps at the monster for trying to ruin the moment, instantly returning the favor. Meanwhile, Hana slashes down two goblins back to back, her confidence skyrocketing with every strike. But as she realizes her own growth, Hana suddenly grows incredibly dizzy, nearly collapsing. Aruto quickly catches her, asking in a worried voice if she's all right. Apologizing, she murmurs that her head is spinning. Aruto just smiles, explaining that this dizzy feeling is actually a side effect of leveling up. Hana is absolutely ecstatic. Sobbing, she buries her face in Aruto's chest. She had waited 15 long years for this breakthrough, but their emotional moment is ruined by Lion complaining about still being buried under goblins. Aruto casually admits he totally forgot about him, while Hana wonders how Lion can stay so calm. Beaten and bloody, Lion proudly boasts that these weaklings could never actually hurt him. Aruto then reveals the whole bait and switch was just to build Hana's confidence, and she finally realizes the truth. Letting go of Aruto, she listens as he suggests taking a breather to calm her nerves, but Hana just smiles, saying she is fully ready to keep going. Aruto smiles warmly in agreement. First, he commands his slime companion to fetch a special weapon. Aruto then presents Hana with an incredible sword forged entirely from ancient dragon bone. He explains he crafted this weapon specifically for her to complement her unique blacksmithing skills. As Hana takes the blade, she is utterly mesmerized by its sheer beauty. With goblins creeping up behind her, she draws the new blade and instantly slashes them to pieces. She is stunned. How could a simple flick of her wrist unleash such terrifying power? She stammers that she is not worthy of such a masterpiece, but Aruto explains that the right weapon will teach and guide its wielder to greatness. This sword was made to help you grow, Aruto says, urging her to finally believe in her own potential to become strong. Gripping the hilt tighter, she nods in agreement while Magica and Lion smile. Aruto announces they are going to keep farming these monsters to boost her level even further. They plan to slowly increase the mob size while keeping a close eye on her. Within moments, Hana is slaying goblins left and right until the entire field is cleared. Aruto rushes over to praise her clean work, making sure she is not hurt. Eager to see her progress, Hana opens her status screen and tells him to take a look. Aruto gasps as he sees her stats. Not only is she level 31, but a legendary unique talent has awakened, called the Germ of a Hero. Stunned, he asks Lion if he has ever heard of such an insane skill, and that is where we leave it for today. Have you ever seen such a crazy talent? Let me know in the comments. Alright, you and I are diving into a world ruled by 6 gods. Magica overhears a rumor about a hero and instantly realizes Hana is the chosen savior she has been desperately searching for. Nice, ruler of souls. Fortimus, god of order and chief of the squirrel tribe. Enamano Aloha, lord of nature. Magica, princess of the squirrel tribe, was born from a prophecy. It declared that she would change the world alongside the hero. Her ultimate mission was to find this chosen one and become their right hand. 7 years after working with Aruto, she finally found her hero. But Hana's powers were sealed, likely due to the god Fortimus. The cult of Fortimus has the world's largest following and immense power. The kingdom of Euphonia is completely under his iron grip. In the name of justice, Fortimus ruthlessly crushes anyone who opposes him. Hana's world-altering talent was suppressed all this time because she posed a direct threat to his divine rule. But Magica notices that Aruto has broken the seal. Teaming up with him was the best choice. Now, they must nurture Hana's talent. Aruto snaps Magica out of her thoughts, asking if she has any ideas. She lies and says everything is fine. She knows that telling Hana the truth about her heroic gift right now would only burden her. It is still way too early. Just then, Hana turns to them, apologizing and suggesting they finally head home now that morning has arrived. She is worried her butler might be panicking. Aruto agrees, knowing she has raised her level enough for one day. But then, Hana looks at him with one more request. Aruto wonders what she wants. Blushing, Hana asks him to walk her home. Aruto points out that she will definitely need a good excuse for staying out this late. He remembers visiting her house in his past life after a brutal training session. He had accidentally hurt her, making her butler absolutely furious. He definitely has to go with her. Now pay attention, because as they split up to sell their loot at the guild, Aruto and Hana finally arrive at her massive family mansion. Trust me, this place is so beautiful you would never tire of looking at it. Hana asks if he is shocked, explaining that her family's founder actually helped build the Euphonia kingdom. The massive doors creak open, and they step inside. Walking past rows of grand family portraits, Hana proudly shares her family history. Every generation before her achieved great things, shaping the nation's destiny. Aruto asks if she plans to do the same, and she nods. That makes her lack of talent a massive problem. Aruto just stays silent. They enter a grand room, and Hana asks Aruto to wait on the sofa, promising she will be right back. As she leaves, Aruto speaks to the empty space, telling the hidden butler he can come out now. Stepping out from the shadows with a surprised look, the butler introduces himself as Clinny. The head butler confirms Aruto's name before questioning him. Aruto cuts straight through the tension, noting that since the butler was hiding, he obviously wants to have a private chat. Clean praises his sharp mind and gets straight to the point. Why approach Hana out of the 30 other academy students? He demands to know why Aruto chose Lady Hana. Aruto knows the colonel name represents the absolute peak of high nobility. Saying it was a coincidence would sound like a lie to this snobby butler. So Aruto explains that they simply understand each other despite her lack of talent. He explains that they both know what it is like to hit rock bottom. Clean stares back, coldly acknowledging their similar circumstances but adding that life must be incredibly tough for a peasant like Aruto. But the butler admits that Hana has been smiling a lot more lately, and it is clearly all thanks to Aruto. Clean pours some hot tea, thanking him, but then drops one final question. What kind of relationship does Aruto want with Hana in the future? You and I both know what is coming next. Remembering his past, Aruto puts down his cup, hoping they can be best friends. The butler stays silent. Suddenly, Clean sweeps a cup off the table, snapping that a peasant could never be her friend. In a flash, he presses a sharp knife directly against Aruto's throat. With the blade digging in, Clean warns him that dreaming of befriending a noble is unacceptable. He demands that Aruto never lay a finger on Hana again. Aruto stares back, analyzing this completely unnatural, sudden shift in behavior. It is just like his past life, when he accidentally hurt Hana and Clean flew into a blind, murderous rage. It is as if some unseen dark force is actively manipulating the butler's mind, trying to trap Aruto in the exact same tragic fate as before. This is definitely the curse of Fortimus's magic at work. If Aruto stays silent, history is going to repeat itself. He must change his destiny. Leaping back, Aruto confronts the butler, demanding to know why they cannot be friends. Clean scoffs, asking if he cannot understand that a highborn lady is ruined by associating with low-class peasants, especially a commoner who dares to act like her equal. But Aruto knows the butler is the one without dignity. Hana grew incredibly strong under his training, easily surpassing the D class. What had Clean actually done for her over the last 15 years? The butler furiously denies it, but Aruto snaps back with the cold, hard truth. Hana was stuck at level 1 while Clean did absolutely nothing to help her grow. Is that your noble dignity? Aruto barks, instantly wrenching the knife right out of the butler's hand. He then reveals he already knows about the 5 other hidden butlers. Pulling out a handful of daggers, Aruto shows he has already disarmed them all. Clean seems to be the strongest, but Aruto mocks their pathetic skills. If he could disarm them this easily, they do not stand a chance if things get ugly. Aruto challenges the butler, asking if his pride is worth dying for. Clean can only stare in complete shock. Right on cue, the door swings open. Hana returns, apologizing for the delay and offering a tour, before noticing Clean standing there. Aruto smiles, playing it cool by saying the butler was just being friendly. Clean quickly recovers, acting like nothing happened. Aruto says he looks forward to their next chat, and Clean bows, forced to play along. Leaving the room, they continue through the mansion. Walking behind Hana, Aruto knows his aggressive display was dangerous, but it was the only way to establish dominance. In his past life, they were slaughtered by an unstoppable enemy named Seigen, and that is where we leave it, knowing they are the only ones who can survive the coming tragedy if they prepare. Hana snaps him out of his deep thoughts. Aruto quietly mutters, "Sorry." Stick with me here as Hana opens her door, teasing Aruto about being so distracted. Stepping into her beautifully neat, brightly lit room, he suddenly realizes this is his very first time in her private space. In his past life, he had never stepped past her living room. Staring around, he wondered if this was actually her bedroom back then, and she surprised him by confirming it really was. She explained that nobles often invite their closest friends into their private chambers, and she simply wanted to thank him properly for everything he did. Hana turned to Aruto to express her deepest gratitude, but he quickly brushed it off, telling her that her incredible strength was entirely her own achievement. Blushing, she admitted she expected him to say that. But as she began asking a nervous question, Aruto cut her off, his mind racing with a dark realization. In his past life, she had confessed and offered to stay by his side. He could not let that happen again. Accepting her love meant repeating the same tragic destiny. He had to reject her to save her life. But then, blushing deeply, she asked to be best friends instead. That threw him off completely. He was not ready for that. As she stood there waiting, embarrassed, he mentally facepalmed. How could he have assumed she was going to confess? What was he even thinking? Flushed with embarrassment, he watched as Hana kindly asked if he was okay, offering her hand and inviting him to sit down. He quickly agreed, saying he would love to be her friend. Hana smiled warmly, thanking him. She figured they did not need to rush into romance just yet. This meant they could spend plenty of time together. Soon, she waved him goodbye, and as he apologized for staying late, his eyes caught a sword near a glass case. Now watch this. Aruto slowly approaches the weapon, his intense focus immediately catching Hana's attention. She explained the sword was forged from a rare ore called orichalcum, created for her family's first head after the ancient War of the Gods. Looking at it, Aruto finally understood. Hana revealed it was a Carnell family heirloom that absolutely no one could wield. Aruto felt its immense presence, wondering why, since the blade did not even look that heavy. She explained the legendary weapon held a powerful ancient force, meant only to fight for what is truly precious in this world. But it went dormant once their founder helped build this kingdom. Gazing at it, Aruto realized you cannot fight for the entire world while serving the narrow interests of just one nation. Hana asked him one last time if he wanted to stay for dinner. Though he wanted to, Aruto knew he had to refuse. He joked that a commoner like him shouldn't spend the night, and she agreed. Apologizing for the sudden departure, he promised to see her tomorrow at school. He declared they would be best friends forever starting today. But as he left, a dark thought crossed his mind. The tomorrow they wanted might never actually come. He hoped she would remember him, no matter what happened next. She watched him walk away. Aruto knew her death was only 7 hours away. Back home, his slime greeted him. Stepping inside, he called out and asked if the goblins had sold the magic stones. The loyal slime immediately spat up a massive pile of shiny coins. He told the slime to have the others deliver these coins to Hana. The little creature looked up, completely confused by their request. Aruto asked Rue to stay in the other room because he had private matters to handle, telling him to send his greetings. Rue reached out, as if protesting being left behind. Feeling Rue climb onto him, he realized they hadn't spent much quality time together lately. Smiling, he held the slime close. Once night fell and Rue drifted off, he stared out the window. You and I both know what's coming. Sumi-jin is heading down this road toward the Carnell mansion, and Aruto picked this exact room to lie in wait and intercept him. Pulling up his skill table, he wondered if his current stats were enough to defeat Sumi-jin this time. In his past life, he had never felt this incredibly weak. But doubts won't save anyone now. He had risked absolutely everything to reach this moment. All that was left was to fight with everything he had. Aruto was ready to defeat Sumi-jin at any cost, avenging all his past suffering. That very night, a dark shroud hung over the capital, leaving everyone wondering if it was fire or demons. From the rooftops, Aruto saw the Carnell mansion engulfed in flames near the royal castle. Panic set in. Rushing toward the raging fire, he desperately tried to make sense of the chaos. His only thought was saving Hannah. Getting closer, he spotted a stranger, with the family butler bravely standing in front of him to protect Hannah and her mother. The stranger declared that their fate was sealed. Holding a crackling ball of energy, he coldly announced that Hannah Carnell would die tonight by the absolute will of the ruler. The butler gasped, unable to believe that Sumi-jin, one of the elite 12 generals of Euphonia, would personally carry out such a heinous act. The man sneered, reminding him that the 12 generals represent the state itself. They act for the greater good, making this execution a completely legal, official imperial order. He mocked the servant for foolishly interfering. The confused butler could only listen as Hannah's crying mother desperately demanded to know why the government wanted to murder her innocent young daughter. Turning to protect her, the brave butler yelled that no decree could justify murdering an innocent 15-year-old girl. He swore to show Sumi-jin absolutely no mercy if he dared harm Lady Hannah. But the moment the butler rushed forward, Sumi-jin effortlessly deflected him with just a single finger. Sumi-jin yawned, saying he hoped a noble's butler would actually make him feel something. Disappointed, he casually unleashed a torrent of flames, sentencing the poor man to a gruesome, burning end. Hannah screamed in absolute horror, calling out Klein's name as she watched him burn. From the shadows, Aruto stood witnessing the entire tragedy unfold. Sumi-jin sighed, muttering that taking the butler's life felt completely empty. He wondered if higher stakes would finally bring him excitement, before turning his cold gaze back to the terrified women. Terrified, Hannah looked at her mother, who held her close and whispered that everything would be okay. Hugging her tightly, she told her she loved her more than anything. Her mother stood in front of her, warning the killer to stay away. She accused him of trying to destroy their noble house, but Sumi-jin merely laughed, saying she was wrong. He explained that while the original plan was to slaughter everyone, the head of the house chose to submit. Hannah's father willingly obeyed the king's orders. He had abandoned Hannah to save himself. Her mother screamed in pure denial, while Hannah's world collapsed as she realized her own father had betrayed them. Sumi-jin sneered that the duke valued power far more than his own family. Mocking her, he brutally impaled the mother, coldly declaring that sacrificing a daughter just to preserve the family name was pure, absolute stupidity. And that's where we leave things today. Hannah sobbed over her dead mother, while Sumi-jin praised her beautiful, broken expression. All right, let's dive into this wild scene where a total madman starts questioning if any of us actually exist. He looks at Hannah and asks if she ever felt like everyone around them is just a fake illusion, programmed by divine magic instead of having real free will. Sumi-jin admits his sick experiments never gave him an answer, so he demands Hannah tell him what she is. Through tears, she insists she is human, but he snaps back, asking who gave her permission to speak. He claims he was only questioning her soul. Hannah shrinks back in terror, and Sumi-jin absolutely loves it, feeling like he is finally on the verge of understanding human nature. He suddenly unleashes a deadly storm of wind blades right at her. Creepily calling her reaction perfect, he is interrupted when Aruto jumps out, demanding he let the girl go. Sumi-jin turns to face him, immediately paralyzing Aruto on the spot. He smiles, telling the young boy that he has absolutely no right to exist in this world. Stepping closer, Sumi-jin looks down on him, declaring he doesn't deserve life. To him, Aruto is just a foolish kid interrupting his grand research and practically begging to be killed. He wants to end him right there, but remembers he cannot just slaughter someone unrelated to the colonels, so he decides to try a much more twisted approach. A sick idea pops into his head, and he decides Aruto will watch his next experiment. Pay attention here because this sick experiment is where things go off the rails. He wants to murder Hannah to see if her pain and Aruto's despair prove they are real, cementing his belief that he is a genius. You and I are about to witness an absolute tragedy. Aruto desperately reaches for Hannah, but he can't even scream. Sumi-jin coldly tells him it is his fate, an immutable divine law based on his low standard of living. He mocks the boy, telling him to accept reality. Born with just 2 weeks of life, Aruto is destined to watch in silent, helpless agony. Aruto fights to move, to beg Sumijin to stop, but it is useless. Sumijin unleashes his full power, destroying Hana while Aruto can only watch, tears streaming down his face. Calling the mission complete, the ruthless magician fakes a sigh of regret. He casually tosses Aruto aside, leaving the broken boy sobbing in the dirt, consumed by guilt and his own utter weakness. Days later, they find Hana's cold body beneath a watermill in a stream just outside the city. They find a fake suicide note claiming she disgraced her family due to a lack of talent. The handwriting is clearly not hers, yet the authorities quickly rule her tragic death as self-inflicted. Staring out the window, Aruto remembers the nightmare. With only 1 hour left before her death, he vows to rewrite history and stop the tragedy. Suddenly, a figure in a raincoat appears. Aruto instantly lunges at him. When Sumijin demands to know who he is, Aruto simply introduces himself as a peasant with a level 1 life. Sumijin is stunned. Aruto exposes him as the 12th general of Yufan, Sumijin Sui. Knowing this, the magician warns that he cannot let Aruto walk away from his active mission. Aruto snaps back that he has no intention of leaving. He is here to end this stupidity. Hearing that, Sumijin coldly claims he is only executing a royal decree. Since the boy wants to get in the way, Sumijin decides to kill him. Suddenly, that familiar paralysis strikes. Sumijin uses his submission spell, locking Aruto in place. Sumijin strikes Aruto with his staff, shouting at him to get lost. He tells him he has no idea what he is interfering with. Yet, Aruto just glares back with an intense, incomprehensible look. Realizing words are useless, Sumijin tells him to give up and throws him hard against a wall. Wiping sweat from his brow, the magician wonders why a mere kid made him lose his cool. He finds it absurd how stubborn children can be, acting like a tiny speed bump. But the next instant, Aruto magically materializes right in front of him. Now pay attention to this clutch moment. Holding his dragon bone dagger, Aruto's stats suddenly surge. He breaks the world's laws, leveling up his life standard from 1 star to 2. Shocked by the incoming strike, Sumijin cannot comprehend how a low-level kid is actually landing a blow on him. He scrambles to understand what is happening. Aruto remembers his intense week of training with Magicka and Lion, where he learned to adjust his life level. He knew enemy spells like submission would be a problem, but trusted his growing experience to build resistance. Just as he hoped, the paralysis breaks after a few hits. Everything is playing out exactly as he planned. He never thought his basic status could change, yet here he is, breaking the world's absolute laws by manually shifting his own life level. Aruto realizes this is the true power of his newly awakened creation talent. Watching from above, Sumijin is completely baffled by whatever trick the boy is pulling. Still, Sumijin sneers that this futile struggle won't change the final outcome. Aruto snaps back that it is definitely not his enemy's choice to make. Sensing Aruto's sheer confidence, the magician scoffs, asking what a weakling can do against his mighty staff. Dodging effortlessly, Aruto marvels at his light body and the massive surge of mana flowing through him. You and I both know he is ready. Brimming with power, Aruto tells the magician that even if he is just a weak mage, he will protect those he loves. Aruto then unleashes a devastating chain of spells, starting with the concentrated fire of a shooting torch, followed by an icicle coffin, storm ascension, and a hydraulic explosion. Witnessing this magic, Sumijin is frozen in shock, realizing Aruto is casting multiple advanced spells at the exact same time. This is no simple skirmish anymore. A relentless assault is required. Sumi realizes that by taking Aruto seriously, he has officially raised the stakes of this battle. Sumin fires a lethal blast of dark ash at Aruto. Without flinching, Aruto counters with everything he has. Watching the clash, Aruto notes that his 4 spells barely equal one of Sumijin's, proving why the general is called the best in the land. Yet he realizes the gap in power is not as impossible to close as he once feared. With a real shot at winning, Aruto plays his next move, deploying water balloons to instantly create a thick, blinding cloud of steam. Sumijin sees right through the trick, knowing Aruto wants to blind him. Aruto rushes in to strike with his sword, but Sumijin smoothly parries and dodges every single blow. Sumi calls his attempts a mere annoyance, reminding him that defeating a general of Yufan is no easy task. Aruto is stunned by how easily Sumijin evades him, recognizing the general's incredible agility matches his deadly magic. But refusing to miss again, he gears up for another strike. Treating Aruto like a pesky fly, Sumiji sets up a highly sensitive grid of pure mana. Within this zone, he can detect the tiniest motion, daring Aruto to step inside. He warns that touching it means instant death. But as Aruto approaches, Sumijin realizes the grid is completely quiet. Aruto has suddenly shifted his movement path, bypassing the trap. Sensing absolutely zero magic, Sumijin wonders what on earth Aruto is planning. But before he can react, Aruto lands a direct hit, leaving the general in utter disbelief. Aruto declares his victory, but Sumijin just laughs and thanks him, mentioning a lord. Looking up in a panic, Aruto sees a massive street lamp falling right towards his head. He barely rolls out of the way, making the magician joke that Aruto clearly did not appreciate his gratitude. But the magician is desperate for answers, demanding to know how Aruto reflected his own attack without activating any spells. Aruto quietly smiles, knowing this was a tactical counter he prepped just for this fight. The steam was just a decoy to force the general into a tight corner. Only one final step remains, and this is definitely no accident. If a god were truly interfering, Aruto would have been dead from the start. As he thinks this through, the silent treatment prompts the magician to give up on asking. Invoking the oracle of the god Formus, Sumijin states he must destroy the hero's seed immediately. Yet, he notes that an obstacle like Aruto points to a much deeper conspiracy. Hearing the phrase hero's seed, Aruto wonders how Sumiji knows about this secret talent, deciding he must grill the magician for answers. Praising the boy's quick wit, Sumijin asks if he knows the truth about the hero's talent. It is a rare gift that appears once a century, always manifesting right before a massive war breaks out. He explains that while it sounds legendary, it is actually a curse that breeds chaos. That is why the god Formus tries to eliminate the host before they are even born. As Sumijin reveals the truth, Aruto finally sees his past mistakes. Stick around with me, because this story is about to get a whole lot crazier. Alright, you and I are diving into a wild clash of ideals. Aruto stuns the mage by flipping the script, claiming it is not the hero who brings chaos to the world, but rather the world's chaos that bursts the hero. The mage demands proof, but Aruto freely admits he has none. Still, he argues the chances of him being right are definitely higher than zero. The mage respects the skepticism but tells Aruto to shut up without real proof. Deciding to end this, he launches an attack and demands to know if Aruto is ready to surrender. As the attack lands, Sumijin is shocked. Even at point-blank range, Aruto shows zero fear. His face does not even register a flicker of pain. Seeing this blank expression, the infuriated mage demands his death. They clash. Aruto knows that if the gods are going to intervene, he just has to keep fighting until they do. Slipping past the strikes, Aruto shifts the entire mood of the battlefield. Before the mage can even react, Aruto lands a heavy, devastating punch right to his face. Aruto rains down more blows, coldly muttering that it is already too late. Sumijin absolutely cannot process what is happening. Aruto's movements are completely different now. Was he holding back this entire time? Pinning the mage down, Sumijin suddenly feels his own body grow incredibly, impossibly heavy. What is this? A weight spell from the ancient age of gods? Even as the kingdom's peak magician, he has absolutely no counter to this forgotten magic. How is this happening? Has Aruto been casting spells on himself this whole time? Pushed to his limit, the mage screams at Aruto to disappear. Such disrespect will never be forgiven. But as Aruto watches the mage channel insane energy into his staff, he realizes the truth. Now watch this part closely. This is where the scale totally breaks. Mana is bleeding out of that staff, and Aruto instantly knows the weapon is about to snap. No normal tool can hold this much power. He realizes a celestial crystal is hidden inside, but the mage sneers that it is far too late. Crafted from the bones of dead kings and orichalcum, this staff is a Peak Kingdom masterpiece housing an artificial celestial crystal at its core. Unleashing it will level the entire area. He knows he will lose his rank as a general of Euphonia, but he does not care. His enemy will be turned to ash. Hovering high above, the mage commands his staff to unleash the ultimate power of absolute death, demanding total and ruthless destruction. Utilizing the artifact of the setting Sun Mourner, Aruto realizes he cannot dodge. Escaping the immediate blast zone, he braces for impact. Landing, the mage figures Aruto was a top-tier wizard. He is annoyed he wasted his precious mana on a peasant, regretting that he had not wiped out the Colonel family sooner. Knowing they had an experienced butler, he wanted to save his strength. Still, he pushes forward through the snowy aftermath to hunt them down. But there stands Aruto, alive and well. The mage is absolutely dumbfounded. Looking at the bleeding wizard clutching his hand, Aruto realizes just how close he came to dying in that blast. He had used a prepared cheat code, tanking the blast as long as possible while using a grave skill to slip into a crack. He missed the direct hit, but the shockwave alone was devastating. If the mage had been at full power, Aruto would have been completely wiped out. Desperate, the mage warns him to stay back and flings a sharp stone right at Aruto's head. Shaking it off, Aruto knows victory is close. Compared to the agony of losing Hana, this mage's attacks are nothing. Cornering him, Aruto calls him a weakling and vows to smash fate head-on. Sent flying, the mage lies unconscious. Aruto draws his blade, holding it high. He has to end him right now, or Hana will never be safe again. You might be thinking the same thing, end him right now. It is his only shot since this trick won't work again, but Aruto hesitates. Just then, Lion leaps down from a roof. Shocked, he runs to Aruto to ask what happened, but instantly trips, sprains his leg, and faceplants onto the dirt. Aruto sheathes his sword. As Lion ties up the wizard, he feels the tension but assures Aruto everything is fine. Lion brags about capturing the evil Sumijin, but Aruto corrects him he did not really win. After all, Hana is the real spark of a hero here. Lion calls that nonsense. Aruto agrees, but his shaking hands prove he just could not bring himself to take a life. Lion reassures him that hesitating to kill a human is normal. Monsters are different. Sumijin caused massive destruction, so the kingdom's authorities will deal with him now. Glad Aruto is safe, Lion helps him up, bringing a small smile to the exhausted hero's face. Lion admits he is stunned. Aruto took down one of Euphonia's 12 generals, calling him a true master. Aruto quickly denies the title. He explains it was purely due to luck. He caught Sumijin completely off guard and fought under conditions heavily favoring his own side. The real secret to his win was his boosted lifestyle, which had quietly pumped up his stats to an insane degree. If he had been even one level lower, he would be dead. Seeing Aruto spacing out and looking pale, Lion asks if he can stand. Aruto claims he is just thinking, then asks why Magica is not with him. Lion says she slipped out of the inn earlier. Where did she go? No one knows. But Aruto trusts she is fine. Suddenly, Aruto shoves Lion away as a sudden, chill-inducing presence slices right through the air. Aruto realizes he is still incredibly weak. Standing before them is Citri, greeting them with a smug smile. Lion confusedly asks who she is. Citri pouts that he forgot her, boasting she is Citri Justice, his partner from the Dragon Hunt reward. She is also one of Euphonia's 12 generals. Looking at her bizarre drill hair, Lion silently notes that she has the perfect look for a classic villain. She insults their lack of taste for not loving her style. Aruto snarks back, asking if she is her only fan. Ignoring them, she snaps that she has no time to waste on dumb peasants. Pointing a finger directly at Aruto, she declares she is here for him. She brands him as pure evil. Lion immediately defends him, shouting that Sumijin was the one who destroyed the city, not his master. Citri claims she knows all that. Sumijin has already been stripped of his general title and arrested, but he is not her target. Her job is to kill anyone labeled evil by God. And that is where we leave it, with Aruto facing a brand new death sentence. Alright, you and I are about to watch things get absolutely wild. As Citri charges, a dazed Aruto prepares for the worst, but Lion suddenly leaps in to shield him. Lion demands to know if the High Judges only exist to slaughter innocents, swearing he won't let anyone touch his master as he effortlessly blocks her strike, forcing her back. She admits she wrote him off as just another brainless brute, clearly surprised by his skill. But Lion just laughs, mocking her flimsy sword and telling Aruto to sit back while he handles this curly-haired pest himself. Aruto cries out from behind him, begging his ally to be careful because that girl's weapon is highly unusual. Ignoring the warnings, Lion charges right at her with full force. But as she swings her blade to counter him, Aruto instantly feels a chill of pure dread run down his spine. She sneers that he never stood a chance, slicing right through his defenses. Lion expects nothing, knowing his absolute damage resistance should easily shrug off a simple slash like this. But reality hits hard as blood sprays and blinding pain shoots through his hand. Shocked, Aruto screams his friend's name and rushes over to check on him, unable to believe his eyes as the giant warrior trembles. It makes no sense. Lion's passive defense should make him completely invincible. But looking closely at Citri, Aruto realizes she has unleashed some kind of terrifying, hidden power. Aruto explains that her blade is actually a legendary artifact, a weapon that represents her absolute justice. Compared to Sumijin and the other 12 generals, Citri is actually weak. In fact, Lion is far stronger, which is why the giant still can't understand how she managed to bypass his defenses. Now pay attention here, because this is where things get truly terrifying. Her blade carries a curse that targets anyone stronger than her, meaning Katri baited Lion on purpose. Because of this, Lion's defenses were completely shattered, leaving a deep wound. Aruto explains she cannot be defeated in a normal fight. Aruto reveals even touching her hair triggers the curse. If they inflict too much damage, they will die instead. The stronger Aruto gets, the more impossible this fight becomes. This broken weapon is how Citri maintains her dominion over the 12 generals. Hearing this, a frustrated lion demands to know how they can possibly win against her. Citri watches Aruto closely, surprised by how much he knows about her. Did she use this weapon on Aruto before? She demands to know how he got this information, even wondering if they fought in a past life. Aruto brushes it off as a joke, warning her that he won't let her stall for time to recover. Suddenly, a massive explosion shakes the area, shocking everyone. Aruto looks over and realizes the blast came directly from Cornello's home. Could someone even stronger than Simigan be attacking? Aruto tells Lion they must move immediately. Just then, a blinding flash of light erupts, carrying a raw energy far beyond anything Simigan could produce. As they rush to save Hana, Citri chases them down, mocking Aruto for thinking he could actually run away in his battered condition. She wonders what that massive noise was, thinking maybe their luck has run out. Watching Aruto hesitate, she believes he is acting out of fear, paralyzed in front of the gods. Determined to finish him off, she lunges forward with her blade. Overwhelmed by regret, Aruto wishes he had finished off Simigan himself, feeling utterly useless as he struggles to save Hana. But then, Ru leaps in to block the blow. Aruto grabs the slime, completely stunned by this sacrifice, praying it is some kind of sick joke as the liquid spreads through Aruto's fingers. Let's pause here. Think about all the memories they shared. Aruto is begging his loyal companion to wake up and not leave him behind. All that remains is a shattered, lifeless core. Consumed by pure rage over Ru's death, Aruto draws his sword to strike Citri down. But suddenly, everything goes black, and he wakes up in the void. The mysterious figure sitting on the throne mocks Aruto for ignoring the artifact's curse, casually greeting him after all this time. This godlike being is the one who sent Aruto through 2 lifetimes. It is totally unimpressed by his angry outburst, asking if Aruto already knew about that weapon's true horror. Recognizing this cosmic realm from his last demise, Aruto assumes he has failed and died again. A chair suddenly appears behind him, and the entity tells him to sit. It explains they can finally talk. When Aruto asks if he is dead, the god reveals his soul has merely hit its absolute limit. He can undergo rebirth, though his physical vessel must be left behind, but his soul will keep its current state. The entity points out how brutal Aruto's life has been, noting that losing Ru almost shattered his soul completely, leaving him on the brink of total erasure. Aruto snaps back, saying he already knows death, and demands to be sent back right now. But the being stops him, wanting to ask Aruto one vital question. It asks what he will do once he goes back. Aruto fiercely replies that he will murder Citri immediately to avenge Ru, just as a dark portal opens right under him. But the god warns him that he cannot return to that world. Shocked, Aruto demands to know why, furious about his loyal companion's death, prompting the entity to question Aruto's true purpose. It reminds Aruto of the final wish he made before starting this journey. The memory of that grinning, spectral hand suddenly flashes in his mind. Seeing him remember, the entity reminds Aruto of their deal. They cannot let his soul break before he achieves his goal. It tells Aruto to cool his head and asks the question again. What will he do upon returning? Aruto desperately wants revenge for Ru, but he knows that letting rage control him will only get more of his loved ones killed. He started this second life for one reason: to save Hana. He shares his resolve, and the entity nods, acknowledging that he is risking his soul to protect someone precious. Aruto declares he is ready to continue their wager, refusing to stop until his soul is entirely spent. Back in reality, his sword stops inches from Citri's face. Shaking, she calls Aruto a sinner and begs him to wait, as Aruto notes his blade is incredibly lethal against strong enemies. But it also has a secret technique to crush weaker foes, even if the backlash curses the wielder in return. Knowing Citri took massive recoil damage after striking Ru, Aruto stares at her with cold eyes, declaring he has absolutely no time to waste on her. Citri is left frozen in pure shock. Turning to Lion, Aruto orders him to take Ru's remains and escape to safety. A worried Lion asks if he plans to fight alone, insisting on backing him up. Aruto gently explains he cannot let Ru suffer any more pain, promising they will all reunite once Hana is safe. Until then, he must protect Lion and watch over Ru. Lion relents, making him promise to rescue Hana and come back alive. Aruto smiles, swearing he will. Bidding him farewell, Lion looks at Citra and tells her she should have run when she had the chance. Citra is completely clueless, prompting Lion to scoff, remarking that it is pathetic for one of the 12 generals to be this oblivious. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this kingdom falls as new enemies descend and Majika desperately rushes toward the battlefield. Sensing his massive magical energy, Magica realizes Aruto is fighting Sumi-jin, but just as she prepares to help, an ominous presence suddenly shadows the colonel's mansion. Could this be the work of the god Foramus? The divine spark had only just appeared in Hana's life, and Magica knew these holy forces were moving far too early before her powers could even mature. Still, she did not think they had a run yet. That is when something falls from the heavens, completely blowing up the mansion. The shadows of God had arrived, putting Hana in extreme danger. Rushing inside, Magica finds these divine killers mercilessly slaughtering everyone in their path. Seeing her parents and the butler already dead, Magica vows to protect the divine embryo at all costs. She fights like a demon, but then hears Hana scream from above. With countless enemies blocking her, Magica screams at them to move, tearing through their ranks. Up ahead, a shadow throws a sword straight at Hana, and Magica yells for her to hold on. Her blade strikes the shadow down. Retrieving her weapon, Magica turns to the terrified girl with a grim truth, telling her that her parents and everyone else are gone. Pulling Hana close, she blames herself for being too late, but promises everything will be okay. As the girl weeps, Magica swears to protect her from ever being touched by those shadows again. You and I both know how annoying a time loop is, and Aruto just realized defeating Sumi-jin did not change a single thing. He panics, thinking Hana is already dead. But then, Magica calls out to him, with Hana safe and sound right behind her. Aruto lets out a massive sigh of relief. He asks if they are hurt, but Magica cuts him off, telling him to listen carefully. Those things in the sky were just the beginning, and something much worse is about to arrive. With seconds to spare, another terrifying figure drops from the heavens. Aruto thinks it is a demon at first, but looking closer, he can barely believe what is standing right in front of him. The demonic pressure is massive, far worse than anything he has ever felt. While normal demons are born naturally, this creature was deliberately crafted by God, a holy demon. Aruto quickly works to undo the hacking trick he used against Sumi-jin, knowing it is the only way to cancel out some of this overwhelming magic. Now resistant to the divine aura, Aruto can finally move. He tells Hana to stay back, drawing his sword to prepare for an intense, life-or-death battle. Suddenly, the demon charges with blinding speed. Aruto raises his blade to parry, but the force of her attack completely shatters his weapon into pieces. The legendary dragon's fang dagger was harder than nitrile metal. How could it break? He dodges her wild strikes until Magica jumps in to save him. Magica warns him to stay focused, admitting even she can barely track their enemy. That strange heavy warrior armor she wears is deceptive. She has the insane speed of the squirrel beast tribe, a perfect soldier crafted by God. Realizing they are in deep trouble, Aruto calls for a split, telling Magica to take the lead while he covers her back. Magica nods and charges forward, using her incredible speed to match the divine beast head-on in a fierce clash. As the two clash, Aruto spots an opening, firing a sudden light flash. Magica immediately reads his play, pressing her offense to keep the demon distracted. Aruto controls the light beams, guiding them around Magica as she weaves through the strikes. He then lands a surprise blow right from the demon's blind spot. The attack hits, and though it is just a scratch, it works. But suddenly, the demon's glowing wings shine with blinding light, catching Aruto completely off guard. She immediately unleashes a deadly rain of razor-sharp feathers. There are far too many to dodge, and they slice into his skin from every single angle. He tries to activate his hacking ability, but it completely fails. A sharp feather impales his chest, sending him flying backward through the ruined walls of the mansion. Magica screams his name, but Aruto lies motionless. Stick around to see if he survives.